What if I told you there exists a force within you, an energy so powerful, so unshakable, that no external circumstance could destroy it? A force that doesn't depend on luck, privilege, or perfect circumstances, but solely on your conscious decision to activate it. The Unbreakable Strength Code is not just another book about positive thinking or visualization. This is the definitive manual for accessing the most resilient, powerful, and magnetic version of yourself. That version that already exists within you, waiting to be awakened. This is not an audiobook to merely be heard. It's an immersive experience of deep reprogramming. Each chapter has been carefully designed to be absorbed in states of relaxation, especially before sleep, when your subconscious mind is most receptive to transformation. You won't just learn about unbreakable strength. You will become that strength. From now on, nothing, absolutely nothing, will be able to stop you. Chapter 1. The Awakening of Inner Strength. The Discovery of Your True Power. There's a moment in every person's life when everything changes. Not because circumstances suddenly align perfectly, not because luck finally smiles upon them, but because something deep within awakens. A switch flips, a door opens, and nothing is ever the same again. You're standing at that threshold right now. Whether you know it or not, whether you feel it or not, something brought you here. Maybe you're tired of feeling powerless. Maybe you're done with the endless cycle of starting strong and fading out. Maybe you've achieved external success but still feel empty inside. Or perhaps you simply know in that quiet place beyond logic that there's more to you than what you've been living. You're right. There is. Let me tell you something that might sound impossible at first, but stay with me because this truth will change everything. You already possess an unbreakable force within you. Not a force you need to build, acquire, or earn. A force you need to remember, to activate, to allow. I'm not talking about motivation. Motivation is like a sugar rush. It feels amazing for a moment, then crashes hard, leaving you more depleted than before. I'm not talking about willpower either. Willpower is a muscle that gets exhausted, and that's why your New Year's resolutions rarely make it past February. What I'm talking about is something far more fundamental, far more powerful, and infinitely more sustainable. I'm talking about the innate strength that exists at the core of your being. The same force that keeps your heart beating without your conscious effort. The intelligence that heals your wounds while you sleep. The power that grew you from a single cell into the complex, miraculous being you are today. That force never left. You just forgot how to access it. Think about this for a moment. Right now, as you're taking in these words, your body is performing millions of functions simultaneously. Your cells are regenerating. Your immune system is defending you. Your nervous system is processing information at speeds that make the fastest computers look primitive. All of this happens automatically, effortlessly, powerfully. You don't have to try. You don't have to motivate yourself to digest food or regulate your body temperature. It just happens. Now ask yourself, if this level of power operates automatically in your physical body, what else is possible when you consciously align with that same force in your mental, emotional, and spiritual life? The answer is everything. But here's what stops most people from ever accessing this power. They've been conditioned to believe that strength comes from struggle, that you have to fight, force, and push your way through life, that being powerful means being hard, closed off, and constantly on guard. This belief system is not just wrong. It's the very thing keeping you weak. True strength, the kind that nothing can break, doesn't come from rigidity. It comes from alignment. It comes from understanding the fundamental laws of energy, consciousness, and creation, and then working with them instead of against them. When you align with these laws, you don't need to force anything. Life stops being a battle and starts being a dance. Let me share something from my own journey. There was a time when I thought strength meant never showing vulnerability, never admitting fear, never asking for help. I built walls so high that nothing could hurt me, and you know what happened. I became brittle, hard, disconnected. The very walls I built to protect myself became a prison. And when life inevitably applied pressure, because life always does, I didn't bend, I broke. That breaking was the best thing that ever happened to me. Because in the rubble of who I thought I had to be, I discovered who I actually was. I discovered that real strength isn't about building walls. It's about building roots, deep roots that keep you grounded, no matter how fierce the storm. Flexible roots that can navigate around obstacles instead of being destroyed by them. You see, nature has already shown us the model for unbreakable strength. Look at a mighty oak tree. During a hurricane, you know what survives. Not the rigid structures that resist the wind. They snap. What survives is the tree that has deep roots and flexible branches. The tree that can bend without breaking. The tree that works with the forces of nature instead of fighting them. You are that tree. But somewhere along the way, someone convinced you that bending meant weakness, that flexibility meant instability, that feeling emotions meant fragility. These lies have kept you stuck in a pattern of exhausting resistance, fighting reality, fighting yourself, fighting life. It's time to stop fighting and start flowing. But flowing doesn't mean being passive. It means being powerful in a completely different way. It means understanding that you can be deeply rooted in your truth while remaining flexible enough to adapt to any situation. It means recognizing that vulnerability is not the opposite of strength. It's the birthplace of it. The science backs this up in fascinating ways. Neuroscientists have discovered that the human brain is far more adaptable than we ever imagined. This quality is called neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to reorganize itself by forming new neural connections throughout life. What this means is revolutionary. You are not stuck with the patterns, habits, and limitations you've developed. Your brain can literally rewire itself based on your focus, thoughts, and experiences. But here's the crucial part most people miss. Your brain doesn't just rewire based on what you think. It rewires based on what you feel. Emotion is the language of the subconscious mind. It's the programming code that writes your reality. When you combine clear intention with elevated emotion, you create a signal so powerful that your brain can't tell the difference between what you're imagining and what you're actually experiencing. This is how people heal from incurable diseases. This is how athletes break impossible records. This is how ordinary people create extraordinary lives. You have this same capability. Every single human being does. The only difference between someone living an average life and someone living an exceptional one isn't talent, luck, or circumstances. It's whether they've learned to consciously direct their energy or whether they're letting it leak out in 1,000 unconscious directions. Think about your typical day. How much energy do you waste worrying about things you can't control? How much power do you give away by dwelling on past mistakes or rehearsing future disasters? How much of your life force drains away through complaining, criticizing, or comparing yourself to others? These aren't just bad habits. They're hemorrhages in your energetic system, and you can't build unbreakable strength while you're constantly bleeding energy. The first step in awakening your inner strength is recognizing where you've been giving your power away. Not to judge yourself, but to reclaim it. Every time you catch yourself in a thought pattern that diminishes you, you have a choice. You can continue that pattern, or you can consciously redirect your energy toward something that empowers you. This isn't positive thinking. It's energy management, and it's the foundation of everything else we're going to build together. Here's what I want you to understand at the deepest level. Your current reality is not the ceiling of your potential. It's just the floor of your current belief system. Every limitation you experience exists, first, as a belief in your mind before it manifests as a circumstance in your life. Change the belief, and the circumstance must change. This is not philosophy. It's physics. Quantum physics has shown us that the observer affects the observed. At the subatomic level, particles exist in a state of infinite possibility until they're observed, at which point they collapse into a specific reality. You are the observer of your life. Your expectations, beliefs, and focus are literally collapsing infinite possibilities into your specific experience. If you expect limitation, you'll observe limitation. If you expect possibility, you'll observe possibility. The quantum field doesn't judge your expectations. It simply mirrors them back to you with absolute precision. This is why two people can experience the exact same circumstance and have completely different outcomes. It's not about the circumstance. It's about the consciousness they bring to it. One person sees an insurmountable obstacle. Another person sees an opportunity for growth. Same situation, different vibration, different result. Your vibration, the frequency at which you operate emotionally and energetically, is the filter through which you experience reality. Now you might be thinking, this sounds great, but how do I actually change my vibration? How do I shift my beliefs when they feel so solid, so real, so ingrained? This is the question that separates those who merely understand these concepts from those who actually transform their lives with them. The answer lies in understanding the relationship between your conscious and subconscious mind. Your conscious mind is what you're using right now to process these words. It's logical, analytical, and capable of choice. But it only controls about 5% of your thoughts and behaviors. The other 95% is run by your subconscious mind, a vast storehouse of programs, beliefs, and patterns that were installed mostly before you were 7 years old. Your subconscious doesn't question or analyze. It simply runs the programs it's been given over and over, automatically. This is why knowing what you should do and actually doing it are two different things. Your conscious mind knows you should exercise, eat well, speak kindly to yourself, and pursue your dreams. But if your subconscious programming says you're not worthy, not capable, or not deserving, guess which one wins? The subconscious always wins, every time. Not because you're weak, but because it's running a program you didn't even know was there. The beautiful truth is this: those programs can be rewritten, not through force or willpower, but through a specific process of reprogramming that works with the subconscious mind instead of trying to overpower it. This process involves creating new neural pathways through repetition, emotional intensity, and elevated states of consciousness. When you practice feeling the emotions of your desired reality before it manifests physically, you're not just dreaming. You're rewiring your brain at a biological level. Your body doesn't know the difference between an experience that's happening in your physical reality and an experience that you're generating through focused thought and emotion. When you vividly imagine yourself as confident, capable, and powerful, when you feel those emotions in your body, your brain fires the same neural networks it would if you were actually experiencing that reality. Do this consistently, and those networks strengthen. They become your new default pattern, your new operating system. This is the secret that the most successful, resilient, and powerful people on the planet have discovered. They don't wait for circumstances to change before they change their state. They change their state first, and then circumstances rearrange to match. They understand that feeling powerful isn't something that happens after you achieve success. Feeling powerful is what creates success. Being unbreakable isn't a destination you arrive at after you've overcome enough challenges. Being unbreakable is a decision you make right now, regardless of what's happening around you. And here's the most liberating part of all. You don't need permission. You don't need perfect conditions. You don't need more time, more money, more support, or more anything external. Everything you need to become unbreakably strong is already within you, not as potential, as reality. You're not trying to become something you're not. You're remembering something you've always been. Think about the times in your life when you felt most alive, most powerful, most authentically yourself. Maybe it was a moment of creative flow. Maybe it was when you stood up for something you believed in. Maybe it was when you faced a fear and moved through it anyway. In those moments, you weren't being someone else. You were being more of yourself. You accessed a frequency that was always available, but usually obscured by doubt, fear, or the weight of social conditioning. That frequency is your natural state. The confusion, self-doubt, and feelings of powerlessness, those are learned. They were programmed into you by a world that benefits from your smallness, by systems that profit from your insecurity, by people who felt threatened by your light. But none of it is true. None of it is real, and all of it can be unlearned. The unbreakable force within you doesn't need to be created. It needs to be uncovered. Like a diamond buried beneath layers of dirt, it's been there all along. Every challenge you've faced, every moment you thought would destroy you but didn't. Those weren't just random hardships. They were invitations to dig deeper, to discover that beneath everything you've been conditioned to believe about yourself lies something infinitely more powerful. You are not your circumstances. You are not your past. You are not the labels others have placed on you, or even the ones you've placed on yourself. You are pure creative potential, having a human experience. And the moment you truly grasp this, not just intellectually, but in your bones, in your cells, in the very core of your being, everything changes. This awakening isn't always gentle. Sometimes it comes through crisis. Sometimes it comes through quiet contemplation. Sometimes it comes through a moment of such clarity that you can never go back to seeing yourself the old way again. However it comes for you, know this. It's not the beginning of something you need to build. It's the recognition of something that's been waiting for you all along. The force that keeps stars burning across the cosmos, the intelligence that orchestrates the dance of billions of galaxies, the power that creates life itself. That same force lives in you. Not metaphorically, literally. You are not separate from the creative power of the universe. You are an expression of it, a unique, irreplaceable manifestation of infinite possibility. When you align with this truth, when you operate from this knowing, obstacles don't disappear, but they stop having power over you. Challenges don't vanish, but they become fuel for your growth instead of evidence of your limitation. You stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "What is this teaching me? How is this making me stronger? What possibility is trying to emerge through this situation?" This shift in perception is the doorway to unbreakable strength, because unbreakable doesn't mean nothing touches you. It means nothing can diminish your essence. You can be bent but never broken. You can be challenged but never defeated. You can be transformed but never destroyed. This is the promise that lives within you, waiting to be claimed. As you close your eyes tonight and drift into sleep, let this truth sink into the deepest layers of your consciousness. You are stronger than you've been taught to believe, more powerful than you've been allowed to express, more capable than circumstances have reflected back to you. The force that has carried you through every moment of your life until now, every heartbreak, every setback, every dark night of the soul, that force is still there. Stronger now, wiser now, ready now. You're not reading these words by accident. You're not on this journey by chance. Some part of you knows it's time. Time to stop playing small. Time to stop apologizing for your ambition. Time to stop dimming your light to make others comfortable. Time to claim the unbreakable strength that is your birthright. The awakening has begun, and once it starts, there's no going back. Only forward, only upward, only into the fullness of who you truly are and who you came here to become. Nothing can stop you now. Nothing, because the force that was always within you has finally been remembered, recognized, and reclaimed, and that force is infinite. Welcome to your awakening. Welcome to your power. Welcome home. Chapter 2. Quantum Reprogramming, Transforming Your Identity at the Deepest Level. Who are you, really? Not the name on your birth certificate, not the job title on your business card, not the roles you play or the masks you wear. Who are you beneath all of that? What remains when you strip away everything you've been told you should be? Most people never ask this question. They spend their entire lives living out an identity that was handed to them by parents, by society, by random experiences they didn't even understand at the time. They walk around believing, "This is just who I am," without ever questioning whether that's actually true. They accept their limitations as facts, their patterns as destiny, their current reality as the only reality possible. But here's what I need you to understand, and I need you to feel this in every cell of your body. Your identity is not fixed. It never was. What you call you is nothing more than a pattern of energy that you've repeated so many times it feels solid, permanent, unchangeable. But energy is always moving, always shifting, always responsive to intention, which means you are always capable of transformation. Not someday, not when conditions are perfect. Right now. This is quantum reprogramming. This is the process of changing who you are at the most fundamental level, not by adding something new, but by recognizing that the person you've been being is just one possibility among infinite possibilities. And once you see that, once you truly grasp that your identity is a choice rather than a sentence, everything becomes possible. Let me take you into the quantum field for a moment, because this is where the real magic happens. At the quantum level, before anything takes physical form, it exists as pure potential, a wave of possibility. Scientists call this superposition, the state where a particle exists in all possible states simultaneously until it's observed. The moment you observe it, measure it, focus on it, it collapses from infinite possibility into one specific reality. You are doing this constantly, every single moment of your life. You're collapsing infinite possibilities into your specific experience through the act of observation, expectation, and belief. When you wake up in the morning and think, "I'm not a morning person," you're not stating a fact. You're collapsing the quantum field into that specific reality. When you approach a challenge and think, "I'm not good at this kind of thing," you're selecting that outcome from an infinite menu of possibilities. Your identity works the same way. Right now, there are infinite versions of you existing as potential in the quantum field. There's a version of you who is confident, magnetic, and unstoppable. There's a version of you who has already overcome every limitation you currently face. There's a version of you living the exact life you dream about. These aren't fantasies. They're real possibilities existing right now in the field of all possibilities. The only question is, which version are you going to collapse into your reality? Most people never consciously choose. They just keep collapsing the same version of themselves over and over again because it's familiar, even if it's painful, even if it's limiting, even if it's keeping them stuck. Familiar feels safer than unknown. Your subconscious mind is designed to keep you alive, not to make you happy. And to your subconscious, anything unfamiliar equals potential danger. So it keeps you locked in the same patterns, the same identity, the same limited version of yourself. Because at least you know you can survive as that version. This is why most people's lives look essentially the same year after year. Same problems, different circumstances, same relationship dynamics, different partners, same financial stress, different numbers. They're not stuck because they're unlucky or because life is hard. They're stuck because they keep showing up as the same person, collapsing the same possibilities, creating the same reality. But you're not most people. You're here because something in you knows there's another way. And there is. The way is this. You don't change your life by doing different things. You change your life by being a different person. When you change your state of being, your vibration, your energy, your identity, different opportunities, different people, different circumstances naturally show up. They have to, because reality is a mirror, and it can only reflect back the frequency you're broadcasting. Think about radio stations for a moment. At any given time, there are hundreds of stations broadcasting different programs. They're all available in the air around you right now. But you only hear the one your radio is tuned to. If you want to hear different music, you don't try to change what the station is playing. You change the frequency you're tuned to. Your life works exactly the same way. Everything you could ever want already exists as a frequency in the quantum field. The question isn't whether it's available. The question is, are you tuned to it? Your identity is your frequency. It's the signal you're broadcasting out into the universe every moment of every day. And that signal is determined not by what you say you want, not by what you think about occasionally, but by who you are being on a consistent basis. It's determined by your dominant thoughts, your habitual emotions, your unconscious beliefs, and most importantly, by the stories you tell yourself about who you are. So if you want to reprogram your identity, you have to start paying attention to those stories. What do you tell yourself when you look in the mirror? What narrative runs through your mind when you face a challenge? What words follow the phrase, "I am," in your internal dialogue? Because here's the thing about those two words. I am. They're the most powerful words in any language. Whatever follows them becomes your reality. I am is the creative force itself speaking through you. When you say, "I am weak," creation hears a command and obliges. When you say, "I am powerful," the universe rearranges itself to match. Most people use "I am" to describe their limitations. I am shy. I am bad with money. I am not creative. I am just not that kind of person. Every time you make one of these statements, you're not describing reality, you're creating it. You're taking infinite potential and collapsing it down into a very small, very limited version of yourself. And then you wonder why your life doesn't change. Here's what I want you to do, starting right now. Begin to catch yourself every time you use "I am" in a limiting way. Don't judge it. Don't beat yourself up about it. Just notice it. Awareness is always the first step of transformation. Once you become aware of the identity you've been unconsciously creating, you can consciously choose a different one. But, and this is crucial, you can't just think your way into a new identity. Your conscious mind, the thinking mind, only represents about 5% of your mental activity. The other 95% is your subconscious, and your subconscious doesn't understand logic or reason. It only understands feeling. This is why affirmations alone rarely work. You can stand in front of a mirror saying, "I am confident," 1,000 times. But if you don't feel confident, if your body doesn't embody that state, you're just talking to yourself. The subconscious doesn't buy it, and nothing changes. Real reprogramming happens when you combine clear intention with elevated emotion. When you can close your eyes and not just visualize who you want to become, but actually feel what it feels like to be that person. This is the secret that successful people have discovered, whether they can articulate it or not. They don't wait to feel successful until after they achieve success. They cultivate the feeling of success first, and then success becomes inevitable. Your body is the subconscious mind. Every emotion you've ever felt is stored in your cellular memory. Every experience is encoded in your nervous system. Your body knows the feeling of every version of yourself you've ever been. And here's the incredible part. Your body can also learn the feeling of versions of yourself you haven't been yet. Through focused practice, you can train your body to emotionally experience your desired reality before it manifests physically. And when you do this consistently, your body starts to believe that reality is already real. It stops sending out the signal of lack, longing, and limitation, and starts broadcasting the frequency of fulfillment, confidence, and power. This is not visualization in the traditional sense. This is embodiment. This is living from the end result. This is becoming the person you want to be before you have any external evidence that it's possible. And this is exactly what it takes to reprogram your identity at the quantum level. Let me tell you about something that happened to me. There was a period in my life when I felt completely stuck. I had knowledge, I had techniques, I had all the tools anyone could want. But nothing was changing. I was still showing up as the same person day after day, wondering why my life looked the same. Then one night, in a moment of deep frustration, I asked myself a question that changed everything. Who would I need to become for this reality to be inevitable? Not what would I need to do? Not what strategy would I need? Who would I need to be? What kind of person naturally creates the life I want? What does that person feel like in their body? How do they walk? How do they speak? How do they respond to challenges? What's their energy like when they enter a room? I sat with these questions, and slowly, an image began to form. Not a fantasy version of myself, but a more authentic version. A version that wasn't trying to prove anything or hide anything. A version that was grounded, present, and powerful without effort. And here's what hit me. That version of myself felt more real than the version I had been living as, the limited, afraid, constantly striving version. That was the mask. The powerful, authentic, unshakable version. That was the truth I had been covering up. From that moment on, I began practicing being that person. Not someday. Not when I achieved certain goals. Right then. I would close my eyes every night before sleep and drop into the feeling of that version of myself. I would feel the groundedness in my body, the quiet confidence, the sense of being exactly where I needed to be. And then I would carry that feeling into my day, asking myself in every situation, how would that version of me handle this? At first it felt like acting, like I was pretending to be someone I wasn't. But after a few weeks, something shifted. The acting started to feel more natural than my old patterns. My body began to recognize this new frequency as home. And then, and this is the part that still amazes me, my external reality started to shift. Not because I was doing anything dramatically different, but because I was being someone fundamentally different. Opportunities appeared, people showed up, synchronicities became normal. The universe was responding to the new signal I was broadcasting. This is available to you. This is available to everyone. Because it's not about being special or gifted or lucky. It's about understanding the mechanics of reality and working with them instead of against them. It's about recognizing that you're not a victim of your past, your genes, your circumstances, or your current identity. You're a creative force with the power to collapse infinite possibilities into whatever reality you choose. But let's be honest about something. This process isn't always easy. Not because it's complicated, it's actually remarkably simple. It's challenging because it requires you to let go of who you've been. And even if who you've been was painful or limiting, it was familiar. Your ego has built an entire structure around that identity. It has stories that justify it, evidence that proves it, and defense mechanisms that protect it. When you start to shift into a new identity, your ego perceives it as a threat. It will fight to pull you back to the familiar. This is what most people experience as self-sabotage. You start to change. You start to grow. You start to step into a more powerful version of yourself. And suddenly you do something that undermines it all. You're not weak. You're not broken. Your ego is just trying to keep you safe by keeping you the same. Understanding this removes the shame and judgment that usually come with self-sabotage. It allows you to observe those patterns with compassion while consciously choosing to move forward anyway. The key is consistency. Quantum reprogramming isn't a one-time event. It's a daily practice of choosing who you want to be, feeling into that identity, and taking actions from that state. Every single day, you're either reinforcing your old identity or building a new one. There's no neutral. Every thought, every emotion, every choice is a vote for the version of yourself you're becoming. And here's something beautiful. You don't have to get it perfect. You don't have to maintain the elevated state 24/7. You just have to return to it more often than you stay in the old state. Think of it like building a new neural pathway in your brain. The first time you walk across a field, you barely leave a trace. But if you walk the same path every day, eventually you create a clear trail. Then that trail becomes a path. Then that path becomes a road. Eventually, it becomes so well established that you follow it automatically without thinking. Your identity works the same way. Right now, you have deeply established neural pathways for your current identity. highways that have been traveled for years, maybe decades. Creating a new identity means forging a new path. At first, it takes conscious effort. It feels awkward, uncertain, maybe even fake. But every time you choose to think, feel, and act as your new identity, you strengthen that pathway. And every time you catch yourself falling back into old patterns and consciously redirect, you're weakening the old highway and building the new road. This is neuroplasticity in action. Your brain is constantly reorganizing itself based on your repeated experiences. And here's the mind-blowing part. Your brain doesn't distinguish between experiences that are happening in your physical reality and experiences you're generating through focused thought and emotion. To your brain, vividly imagining yourself as confident, powerful, and successful is the same as actually being confident, powerful, and successful. The same neural networks fire. The same chemicals are released. The same patterns are strengthened. This is why the practice of embodying your desired identity is so powerful. You're not waiting for external circumstances to change before you change. You're changing at the level of your nervous system, your cellular memory, your energetic signature. And when you change at that level, external circumstances must eventually align. They have no choice, because you're no longer a vibrational match for the old reality. I want you to think about someone you admire, someone who embodies qualities you want to develop, not to compare yourself or feel inferior, but to study them. What is their energy like? How do they carry themselves? How do they respond to challenges? What beliefs would someone need to hold to show up the way they show up? You're not trying to become them. You're trying to access those same qualities within yourself, because I promise you, they're there. If you can recognize a quality in someone else, it means that quality exists somewhere in you. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to perceive it. Now here's the practice that ties all of this together. Every night before you sleep, I want you to do something powerful. Close your eyes and drop into the feeling of the identity you're creating. Not the one you had, not the one circumstances seem to reflect, the one you're consciously choosing. Feel it in your body. Feel the confidence, the peace, the power, the freedom, whatever qualities define your new identity. Let those feelings saturate every cell. Let your body memorize this state, and as you drift off to sleep, know that your subconscious mind is most receptive in this twilight state. The thoughts and feelings you take into sleep are the ones that get impressed most deeply into your subconscious programming. This is your opportunity to reprogram yourself at the deepest level, while your conscious mind's critical factor is offline and your subconscious is wide open to new instructions. Then, when you wake up in the morning, before you check your phone, before you think about your to-do list, before you step back into the identity you've always been, take a moment to reconnect with that feeling. Who are you choosing to be today? Not who were you yesterday. Who are you becoming? Feel into that identity. Let it inform your first thoughts, your first emotions, your first actions of the day. This is how you reprogram yourself at the quantum level, not through force or willpower, but through consistent choice and embodied feeling. You're training your body to emotionally live in a new reality before your physical circumstances have caught up. And when your body believes the new reality is real, when it's no longer sending out signals of lack or limitation, the quantum field must respond. It must collapse possibilities that match your new frequency. You are not the person you were yesterday. You don't have to be. That person was just one collapse of infinite potential based on old programming, old beliefs, old patterns. Today, Right now, in this moment, you can choose to collapse a different possibility, a more powerful you, a more authentic you, a version of yourself that isn't carrying the weight of everything you've been told you are, but is instead expressing everything you truly are. This is your quantum reprogramming. This is your rebirth. Not someday, not when you're ready, not when conditions are perfect. Now, right now. With every breath, you're either reinforcing who you've been or creating who you're becoming. And the version of you that is unbreakable, unstoppable, and fully alive, that version is available right now. All you have to do is feel into it, choose it, and become it. Your identity is not your prison, it's your power. The moment you realize you can consciously reprogram it, everything changes. Because you're no longer at the mercy of your past. You're no longer defined by your limitations. You're no longer stuck being someone you never consciously chose to be. You are a quantum being, capable of existing in infinite states. And right now, in this moment, you're collapsing into the most powerful version of yourself you've ever known. Feel that. Embody that. Become that. Because that is who you truly are. That is who you've always been. You're not creating something new. You're remembering something ancient. You're returning to the truth of your infinite nature. And from that place, nothing can stop you. Nothing can break you. Nothing can diminish the force that you are. Welcome to your new identity. Welcome to the quantum field of infinite possibility. Welcome to the version of yourself that was always waiting for you to remember who you really are. Chapter 3. The Emotional Shield. Protecting your energy in a chaotic world. Have you ever noticed how you can wake up feeling powerful, centered, and ready to take on the world, only to have one conversation, one comment, one piece of news completely drain your energy? Within minutes, that sense of power evaporates. Your confidence collapses. Your clarity dissolves into confusion. And you're left wondering what just happened. What happened is simple. You encountered an energy that was stronger than the boundary you had around your own. Your emotional shield was either too weak or non-existent, and you absorbed someone else's frequency like a sponge absorbs water. Now you're carrying their fear, their doubt, their negativity, their chaos, and calling it your own. This is one of the most misunderstood aspects of becoming unbreakable. Most people think strength means toughening up, building walls, becoming impervious to everything around them. They think protection means shutting down, closing off, armoring themselves against the world. And yes, you do need protection, but not the kind that makes you hard and disconnected. You need the kind that allows you to remain open, sensitive, and present, while simultaneously being completely unshakable in your center. This is the art of the emotional shield, and it's not about keeping everything out. It's about consciously choosing what you allow in. Let me be clear about something right from the start. You are an energetic being, living in an energetic universe. Everything is vibration. Everything is frequency. Your thoughts carry a frequency. Your emotions carry a frequency. And every person you encounter, every environment you enter, every piece of media you consume, all of it is broadcasting a frequency. When you're not conscious of this, you're just walking through life absorbing whatever frequencies are around you, like a radio, with no ability to choose its station. Think about the people in your life who drain you. You know the ones. After spending time with them, you feel exhausted, irritable, or just off in some way you can't quite name. These aren't bad people. They're not trying to harm you. They're simply operating at a frequency that conflicts with yours. And when you don't have a strong, energetic boundary, You entrain to their frequency instead of holding your own. Entrainment is a law of physics. When two frequencies come into contact, the stronger one always influences the weaker one until they synchronize. Now think about the people who energize you. After being with them, you feel lighter, clearer, more inspired. Again, it's not magic, it's frequency. Their vibration is elevated, and when you're in their presence, your frequency rises to meet theirs. Same principle, different result. The question is, do you want to be at the mercy of whatever frequency you encounter? Or do you want to become so anchored in your own frequency that you remain stable regardless of what's around you? Do you want to be a sponge, or do you want to be a force field? Most people are energetic sponges. They absorb the moods, opinions, and emotions of everyone around them. They walk into a room full of stressed people and immediately feel stressed. They talk to someone who's fearful and suddenly they're anxious. They watch the news and their entire nervous system goes into fight or flight. They don't have an emotional shield. They have an open door with a welcome mat that says, "Whatever you're feeling, I'll feel it too." This isn't compassion. This isn't empathy. This isn't being a good person. This is being ungrounded, unprotected, and ultimately unable to help anyone because you're too busy drowning in the emotional currents of everyone else. You can't be a light in the darkness if every shadow you encounter extinguishes your flame. Building an emotional shield doesn't mean becoming cold or indifferent. It means becoming so solid in your own energy that you can witness other people's storms without getting swept away by them. It means you can hold space for someone's pain without absorbing it into your body. It means you can be fully present and fully protected at the same time. This is the paradox that most people never understand. True strength is both soft and solid, both open and boundaried, both flexible and unbreakable. So how do you build this shield? How do you create boundaries that protect without imprisoning? How do you remain sensitive without being vulnerable to every energetic shift around you? It starts with understanding where your energy is leaking. Energy leaks are everywhere, and most people are completely unconscious of them. Every time you worry about something you can't control, you're leaking energy. Every time you replay a past conversation in your mind, trying to fix it or understand it or win it retroactively, you're leaking energy. Every time you rehearse future scenarios that haven't happened and probably never will, you're leaking energy. Every time you judge yourself, criticize yourself, or compare yourself to others, you're hemorrhaging life force. These aren't just bad mental habits. They're literal energy drains. Your life force is finite on a daily basis. You only have so much. And if you're spending it on things that don't serve you, there's nothing left to fuel your actual growth, your actual goals, your actual life. You're running on empty while wondering why you never have enough energy to create what you want. The first step in building your emotional shield is becoming aware of these leaks and consciously choosing to close them. This doesn't mean suppressing your thoughts or denying your emotions. It means redirecting your energy from unconscious drainage to conscious creation. It means catching yourself in the act of worrying and choosing to focus on what you can control instead. It means noticing when you're replaying the past and gently bringing yourself back to the present. It means recognizing when you're catastrophizing about the future and anchoring into what's real right now. This practice alone will change your life, because when you stop leaking energy into the past and future, into worry and judgment, into other people's opinions and expectations, you suddenly have so much more power available for the present moment. And the present moment is the only place where creation happens. The past is done. The future doesn't exist yet. This moment, right now, is where your power lives. And when you learn to keep your energy here, in this moment, you become formidable. But awareness is only the first layer of protection. The second layer is about consciously cultivating your own frequency so strongly that it becomes your default state, not something you have to constantly maintain through effort. This is where most people struggle. They do a meditation, they feel great for an hour, and then life happens and they're right back in reactivity. They set an intention in the morning, and by noon they've completely forgotten it because someone triggered them or stressed them or pulled them off center. This happens because they haven't anchored their frequency deeply enough. They're trying to maintain a state through willpower, and willpower always runs out. What you need instead is to embody a frequency so completely that it becomes who you are, not something you do. When your elevated state becomes your identity, which we talked about in the last chapter, it stops being fragile. It becomes your foundation. Here's how you do this. You practice feeling the way you want to feel so consistently that your body learns it as your baseline. Not when conditions are perfect, not when everything is going well, not when you're alone in a quiet room with no distractions. You practice it in the midst of chaos. You practice it when someone is pushing your buttons. You practice it when life is messy and uncertain and challenging, because that's when it matters most. That's when you're actually building the shield. Think of it like building muscle. You don't get strong by lifting weights when you feel like it. You get strong by showing up consistently, especially on the days when you don't feel like it. Your emotional shield works the same way. Every time you choose to return to your center, when something tries to knock you off, you're strengthening that shield. Every time you catch yourself absorbing someone else's energy and consciously choose to release it, you're building your boundary. Every time you feel triggered and pause before reacting, you're fortifying your foundation. And let me tell you something powerful. Your triggers are your teachers. Every person who irritates you, every situation that frustrates you, every circumstance that makes you feel powerless, these aren't obstacles to your growth. They're invitations to strengthen your shield. They're showing you exactly where your boundaries are weak, exactly where your energy is still entangled with external validation, exactly where you're still giving your power away. Most people avoid their triggers or blame them on others. He makes me so angry. She stresses me out. This situation is impossible, but nobody can make you feel anything. They can only activate what's already inside you. If someone's words devastate you, it's because somewhere inside you believe those words might be true. If someone's opinion of you matters so much that it ruins your day, it's because you haven't yet anchored into your own sense of worth. If external circumstances can derail you, it's because you haven't yet cultivated an internal state strong enough to withstand external chaos. This isn't blame. This is empowerment. Because if other people and circumstances are responsible for how you feel, you're powerless. You're at their mercy. But if you recognize that your emotional state is always, ultimately, your responsibility, then you have all the power. You can choose your response. You can choose your frequency. You can choose to remain centered no matter what storms are raging around you. Let me share something that transformed my relationship with difficult people and situations. There was someone in my life who knew exactly how to push every button I had. Every conversation left me angry, defensive, and emotionally drained. I spent so much energy thinking about what I should have said, replaying the interactions, building walls to protect myself from the next encounter. I thought the problem was them. I thought if they would just change, or if I could just avoid them, I would be fine. Then one day, it hit me. This person was my greatest teacher. They were showing me exactly where I was still weak, where my shield had holes, where I was giving my power away. They weren't the problem. My reaction to them was. My lack of boundaries was. My need for their approval or understanding was. The moment I realized this, everything shifted. I stopped trying to change them or avoid them. Instead, I used every interaction as practice for staying in my power, for not absorbing their energy, for maintaining my frequency regardless of theirs. And you know what happened? Not only did I become stronger, but the dynamic between us completely changed. When I stopped reacting, they stopped having ammunition. When I stopped engaging in the dance ended. When I held my boundary without aggression, without defensiveness, without needing them to see my perspective, they had nothing to push against. The relationship either transformed into something healthier or it naturally dissolved. But either way, I was free. This is the power of the emotional shield. You don't need everyone to understand you. You don't need everyone to like you. You don't need everyone to agree with you or validate you or see your worth. You only need to be so anchored in your own truth, your own frequency, your own value, that nothing external can shake it. And when you reach that level of inner stability, two things happen. First, you stop attracting people and situations that would test you in those old ways. Second, the people and situations that do show up can no longer destabilize you. You've become unshakable. Now, I want to address something important. Some of you might be thinking, but isn't this selfish? Isn't this about building walls and only caring about myself? And I understand why it might feel that way, especially if you've been conditioned to believe that caring about others means sacrificing yourself. But here's the truth. You cannot give what you don't have. You cannot pour from an empty cup. You cannot hold space for someone else's transformation if you're drowning in their emotional chaos. You cannot be of service to the world if you're constantly depleted by it. The emotional shield isn't about separation. It's about conscious connection. It's about being able to be with someone in their pain without taking on their pain. It's about offering presence without losing your presence. It's about holding space without collapsing your space. This is what true compassion looks like. Not absorbing everyone's suffering as if that somehow helps them, but remaining stable in your light so that your light can illuminate their path. Think about the people who have truly helped you in your life. Were they the ones who joined you in your misery and made it worse? Or were they the ones who remained calm and centered while you were falling apart, giving you something solid to hold on to? Were they the ones who absorbed your fear and reflected it back to you, amplified? Or were they the ones who remained in a higher frequency and lifted you up to meet them there? The most powerful healers, teachers, and leaders are not those who feel everything. They're those who remain anchored while others are spinning. This is what your emotional shield allows you to do. It allows you to be a stabilizing force in an unstable world. It allows you to be the person others can lean on because you're not going to collapse under the weight. It allows you to witness pain, hold space for transformation, and offer genuine support without losing yourself in the process. This isn't selfish. This is the most generous thing you can do, because a strong person can lift others. A weak person can only drag them down. So how do you maintain this shield in real time when life is throwing everything at you? You breathe. Conscious breathing is the fastest way to return to your center and reinforce your energetic boundary. When you feel yourself getting pulled into someone else's drama, when you feel your energy dropping to match your environment, when you feel that familiar sensation of losing your grip on your own power, breathe. Not shallow, unconscious breathing. Deep, intentional, grounding breaths that connect you back to your body, back to the present moment, back to your power. With each inhale, imagine you're drawing in pure, clear, powerful energy directly from the source of all creation. With each exhale, imagine you're releasing anything that isn't yours, anyone else's energy, any thoughts that don't serve you, any emotions that you've absorbed. You're not forcing anything. You're not fighting anything. You're simply using your breath to cleanse your energetic field and reestablish your boundary. And as you breathe, as you ground yourself back into your center, you can also visualize your shield. Some people see it as a sphere of light surrounding their body. Others see it as an impenetrable force field. Others feel it as an energetic boundary that nothing can cross without permission. The image doesn't matter. What matters is the intention. You're consciously declaring that you are sovereign over your own energy, that you decide what enters your field and what doesn't, that you are the guardian of your own frequency. This isn't about living in fear of other people's energy. It's not about being paranoid or hypervigilant. It's about being conscious. It's about recognizing that you're constantly in an energetic exchange with everyone and everything around you, and choosing to participate in that exchange from a place of power rather than unconsciousness. When you have a strong shield, you can walk into any room, encounter any person, face any situation, and remain yourself. Not a defensive version of yourself. Not a closed-off version of yourself. Your authentic, powerful, open-hearted self, but with clear boundaries that protect your essence. As you move through your day, check in with your energy regularly. Are you still centered, or have you started to drift into someone else's frequency? Are you carrying emotions that aren't yours? Are you thinking thoughts that don't belong to you? If so, pause, breathe, release, return. This becomes second nature with practice, and eventually, you won't need to consciously check in because your shield will be so strong that you'll immediately feel it when something tries to penetrate it. And here's something beautiful that happens when you develop this level of energetic mastery. You stop attracting energy vampires. You stop finding yourself in toxic situations. You stop being the dumping ground for everyone's problems, not because you've become cold or unavailable, but because your frequency has changed. Your shield isn't just protection. It's also a filter. It naturally repels energies that don't match yours and attracts energies that do. When you become unshakable in your power, people who want to destabilize you simply lose interest. They can't get what they need from you anymore, so they move on to someone who's still available for that dynamic. At the same time, you start attracting people who match your elevated frequency, people who are also doing the work, people who respect boundaries and bring positive energy, people who add to your life rather than drain it. Your relationships transform. Your environment transforms. Not because you manipulated anything, but because you changed your vibration and reality rearranged itself to match. This is the power of the emotional shield. It's not just protection, it's transformation. It's not just defense, it's creation. It's not just keeping things out, it's calling things in. When you become conscious of your energy and deliberate about protecting it, you step into a level of power that most people never access. You become someone who can navigate any situation without losing yourself. Someone who can be present without being consumed. Someone who can love deeply without getting lost in the other person. Someone who can engage fully with life while remaining anchored in their own center. And the most beautiful part, the more you practice this, the less effort it takes. Eventually, your shield isn't something you have to consciously maintain. It's who you are. It's your natural state. You're no longer trying to protect yourself from the world. You're simply being yourself so fully that nothing else can take root. Your frequency is so clear, so strong, so stable, that it naturally repels what doesn't serve you and attracts what does. This is what it means to be unbreakable. Not that nothing touches you, but that nothing can knock you off your center. Not that you never feel challenged, but that you remain stable within the challenge. Not that you avoid difficulty, but that you meet it from a place of such inner strength that it becomes an opportunity for growth rather than a threat to your foundation. As you close your eyes tonight and prepare for sleep, feel your shield around you, not as a wall, but as a field of protection. Feel yourself safe, grounded, and sovereign within your own energy. Know that as you rest, this shield is strengthening. Your subconscious is integrating everything you've learned. Your body is anchoring this new level of protection into your cellular memory. Tomorrow, you will wake up more boundaried, more centered, more unshakable. And with each passing day, your emotional shield will become less of something you do and more of something you are. You are protected. You are powerful. You are sovereign. And nothing, absolutely nothing, can penetrate the force field of a person who knows their worth, guards their energy, and remains anchored in their truth. This is your shield. This is your strength. This is your birthright. Claim it. Embody it. Become it. Chapter 4. The Invisible Beliefs That Sabotage You. Identifying and eliminating your hidden limiters. There's a program running in your mind right now. It's been running since you were a child, operating silently in the background of your consciousness, making decisions for you, filtering your perception, and determining what's possible in your life. You didn't write this program. You didn't choose it. You probably don't even know it exists. But it's there, running 24/7, and it's controlling 95% of everything you think, feel, and do. This program is made up of beliefs, not the beliefs you consciously hold and can articulate, not your opinions or your values. I'm talking about the deep, subconscious beliefs that were installed in you before you had the cognitive ability to question them. Beliefs that feel so true, so fundamental, so much like objective reality that you've never even thought to examine them. And these beliefs, these invisible architects of your experience, are either building your dreams or destroying them. Most people go through their entire lives never realizing that the obstacles they keep encountering aren't external, they're internal. The reason you can't seem to break through to the next level isn't because you're not smart enough, talented enough, or lucky enough. It's because you have a belief system that won't allow it. And until you identify these beliefs and consciously reprogram them, you'll keep hitting the same ceiling over and over again, wondering why nothing changes despite all your effort. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Your current results are a perfect reflection of your current beliefs. If you're not where you want to be, it's not because the universe is against you, or because success is reserved for other people. It's because somewhere in your subconscious programming, you have beliefs that are incompatible with the results you desire. And as long as those beliefs remain in place, your external reality will continue to mirror them back to you with ruthless accuracy. Think about it this way. Your subconscious mind is like the operating system of a computer. Your conscious mind is like the applications you run on top of it. You can have the best apps in the world, but if your operating system is corrupted or outdated, those apps aren't going to work properly. You can set all the goals you want, create all the vision boards you want, affirm all day long. But if your subconscious doesn't believe those things are possible for you, it will sabotage every effort you make. Not because it wants to hurt you, but because it's literally programmed to keep you consistent with your beliefs. Your subconscious mind's job is to prove your beliefs right. Whatever you believe at the deepest level, your subconscious will work tirelessly to make real in your experience. If you believe success is hard, your subconscious will make sure success is hard for you. If you believe you're not good enough, your subconscious will filter reality to show you evidence that confirms that belief. If you believe you don't deserve abundance, your subconscious will sabotage every opportunity that would bring abundance into your life. It's not being malicious. It's being loyal to what it thinks is true. So the question isn't whether you have limiting beliefs. Everyone does. The question is, what are yours? What invisible programs are running in the background of your mind, determining what you see, what you attempt, what you allow, and what you achieve? Let me walk you through the 7 most common limiting beliefs that sabotage even the most talented, driven, and capable people. As I describe each one, pay attention to any resistance, any defensiveness, any urge to dismiss what I'm saying, because that resistance is usually a sign that you've hit on something true. Your ego doesn't want you to see these beliefs, because if you see them, you can change them. And your ego's entire job is to keep you the same, because sameness equals safety. The first belief is the most insidious. I am not enough. This belief takes many forms. Not smart enough, not talented enough, not experienced enough, not worthy enough, not attractive enough, not connected enough. Fill in the blank with whatever version resonates, but the core belief is the same. There's something fundamentally lacking in you that disqualifies you from the life you want. This belief is usually installed in early childhood, often by well-meaning parents, teachers, or peers who were themselves operating from the same belief. Maybe you were compared to siblings or classmates. Maybe love and approval were conditional on performance. Maybe you internalized the message that you needed to be different than you are to be acceptable. This belief is a prison, because if you're not enough, then no amount of achievement will ever satisfy you. You could accomplish everything on your list and still feel empty, because the belief isn't about what you do. It's about who you are. And until you uproot this belief and replace it with the truth, which is that you are inherently enough, complete, and worthy, exactly as you are, you'll spend your entire life trying to prove your worth instead of living from your worth. The second belief is closely related. I don't deserve good things. This one is tricky because it often masquerades as humility or realism. You might consciously want success, wealth, love, and happiness. But if your subconscious believes you don't deserve those things, it will create situations that take them away the moment they appear. This is why some people finally achieve their goals and then immediately self-destruct. Why someone gets the relationship they always wanted and then sabotages it. Why someone makes more money and then finds a way to lose it. The subconscious is simply restoring what it perceives as the natural order based on your beliefs about what you deserve. This belief often comes from guilt shame, or religious programming that taught you that suffering is noble and pleasure is selfish. It comes from a worldview that says you have to earn good things through sacrifice and struggle, that ease is suspicious, that if something comes easily, it can't be valuable. But none of that is true. You don't have to earn your worth. You don't have to suffer to prove you deserve joy. You deserve good things simply because you exist. Your existence itself is proof of your worthiness. The universe doesn't make mistakes. You were created on purpose for a purpose, and you have every right to experience all the beauty, abundance, and fulfillment that life has to offer. The third belief is the one that keeps people stuck in limitation forever. It's not safe to be powerful. This belief whispers that if you fully step into your power, something bad will happen. You'll be judged. You'll be attacked. You'll be rejected. You'll lose the people you love. You'll become arrogant or selfish. You'll be responsible for things you don't want to be responsible for. So you play small. You dim your light. You hide your gifts. You downplay your success. You apologize for taking up space. And you convince yourself this is humility when really it's fear. This belief often develops in families or cultures where standing out was dangerous, where being different meant being isolated, where success was threatening to others, where powerful people were portrayed as corrupt or cold. Your subconscious learned that visibility equals vulnerability, that power attracts attack, that it's safer to stay hidden in the middle of the pack where no one notices you. But here's what that belief costs you. Everything. Every opportunity you didn't take because you were afraid to be seen. Every gift you didn't share because you were afraid of judgment. Every dream you didn't pursue because you were afraid of what success would demand of you. That's the price of this belief. And it's way too high. The fourth belief is the one that kills more dreams than anything else. I can't trust myself. This belief says that if you follow your intuition, you'll make the wrong choice. If you trust your desires, you'll want the wrong things. If you listen to your inner guidance, you'll be led astray. So you look outside yourself for answers. You ask everyone else what you should do. You second-guess every decision. You wait for permission, validation, proof that it's okay to move forward. And while you're waiting, life passes you by. This belief usually comes from experiences where you were told your feelings were wrong, your perceptions were inaccurate, or your choices were foolish. Over time, you learned to distrust the most reliable guidance system you have, your own inner knowing. But here's the truth. You have access to infinite intelligence. Your intuition is connected to a source of wisdom that knows things your logical mind could never figure out. When you learn to trust yourself again, when you learn to listen to that quiet voice inside that knows what's true for you, you become unstoppable, because you're no longer dependent on external validation or approval. You're sourcing your power from within. The fifth belief is the one that creates constant anxiety. The other shoe is always about to drop. This belief says that if things are going well, it's only temporary. Good times don't last. Success is fragile. Happiness is fleeting. Something bad is always around the corner. So you can never fully relax, never fully enjoy what you have, never fully celebrate your wins. You're always bracing for impact, waiting for the inevitable disaster that will take it all away. This belief comes from experiencing loss, disappointment, or trauma, especially early in life. Your nervous system learned that safety is an illusion, that peace doesn't last, that it's better to stay vigilant than to be caught off guard. But this belief doesn't protect you. It poisons every moment. It robs you of presence. It prevents you from fully receiving the good that's available to you right now. And ironically, because you're so focused on what could go wrong, you often create the very problems you're trying to avoid. Your energy of fear and expectation of disaster becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. The sixth belief is the one that keeps people isolated. If people really knew me, they wouldn't love me. This belief says that your true self is unacceptable, that you have to hide parts of yourself to be loved, that if people saw your flaws, your struggles, your darkness, your weirdness, they would reject you. So you wear a mask, you perform, you show people the version of yourself you think they want to see, and you end up feeling lonely even in relationships because no one actually knows the real you. This belief develops when love was conditional, when you learned that certain parts of you were acceptable and others weren't, when you were praised for conforming and punished for being different. Your subconscious concluded that authenticity is dangerous and performance is necessary for survival. But here's what this belief creates: shallow connections that never satisfy you, because the love you receive is for the mask, not for you. And somewhere deep inside, you know that. You know you're not truly seen or known. And that creates a loneliness that no amount of surface-level connection can heal. The seventh belief is the one that creates perpetual struggle. Life is hard, and then you die. This belief says that struggle is the default, that ease is rare, that you have to fight for everything, that life is inherently difficult and the best you can hope for is to survive it with some degree of dignity. This belief makes you approach everything from a state of resistance and effort. It makes you believe that if something comes easily, it's not valuable or it won't last. It makes you trust struggle more than flow. This belief is often passed down through generations. It comes from ancestors who lived through genuinely difficult circumstances: war, poverty, oppression. Their struggle was real, and the belief that life is hard helped them survive. But you're not in their circumstances. You don't need that belief anymore. Yet it's still running in your system, creating unnecessary hardship, making you work 10 times harder than you need to, and preventing you from receiving the ease and flow that's actually available to you. Now here's what I want you to understand. These beliefs aren't truth. They're just thoughts. You've thought so many times they feel true. They're neural pathways that have been reinforced through repetition until they became your default perception. But neural pathways can be changed. Beliefs can be rewritten. The program can be upgraded. The first step is simply seeing the beliefs. Most people never get this far because these beliefs operate below the level of conscious awareness. They're the lens you see through, not something you can see. But now that I've named them, you can start to notice them. You can catch yourself in moments when these beliefs are running the show, when you're about to take a risk and suddenly find a reason not to. When you're about to celebrate a win and immediately minimize it, when you're about to be vulnerable and quickly put your mask back on. These are the moments when your limiting beliefs are active. The second step is questioning the beliefs, not accepting them as truth, but challenging them. Is it really true that you're not enough? Or is that just a story you've been telling yourself? Is it really true that you don't deserve good things? Or is that just programming from people who didn't believe they deserved good things? Is it really true that it's not safe to be powerful? Or have you just been protecting yourself from an imaginary threat? Question everything, because when you shine the light of conscious awareness on these beliefs, they start to lose their power. The third step is replacing the beliefs with new ones, not just thinking positive thoughts on top of the old beliefs, but actually reprogramming your subconscious with beliefs that serve you. This requires consistency and emotional intensity. Remember, your subconscious doesn't respond to logic, it responds to feeling. So you can't just think, "I am enough," once, and expect everything to change. You have to feel it, embody it, live from it, practice it until it becomes more true than the old belief. Here's a powerful practice for reprogramming beliefs. Every night before sleep, when your subconscious is most receptive, bring to mind one of the limiting beliefs you've identified. See it clearly, acknowledge it, thank it for trying to protect you, then consciously release it. Imagine it dissolving, floating away, leaving your system completely. And in its place, install a new belief, not just as words, but as a feeling in your body. If you're releasing, "I am not enough," install, "I am inherently complete and whole, exactly as I am." Feel what that feels like. Let your body know this is the new truth. Let your nervous system relax into this new reality. Do this consistently, and something miraculous happens. The old neural pathways start to weaken. The new ones start to strengthen. The old beliefs start to feel foreign. The new ones start to feel natural. And gradually, without even trying, your behavior changes. Your choices change. Your results change. Because you're no longer being run by invisible programs that were never yours to begin with. I'll tell you something from my own journey. I spent years wondering why I could never seem to break through a certain income level. I would get close. Then something would always happen. An unexpected expense, a lost opportunity, a self-sabotaging decision. I thought it was just bad luck. Then I did the work of excavating my subconscious beliefs, and I found it. A belief that making more money than my parents did would somehow betray them. That success beyond their level would separate me from my family. That wealth would make me different in a way that would cost me love. This belief was completely unconscious. I never would have articulated it if you asked me. But it was there, running in the background, creating a ceiling I couldn't break through, no matter how hard I tried. Once I saw it, once I questioned it, once I released it and replaced it with a new belief, that my success honors my parents by showing what's possible, that wealth allows me to support my family in bigger ways, that I can be successful and connected at the same time, everything changed. The ceiling shattered. The opportunities that had been invisible suddenly appeared. The self-sabotage stopped, not because I worked harder, but because I removed the invisible limiter. This is what's available to you. Whatever ceiling you keep hitting, whatever pattern you keep repeating, whatever result you can't seem to create, there's a belief underneath it. Find it, question it, release it, replace it, and watch your entire reality reorganize itself around your new programming. Your beliefs aren't just thoughts. They're the invisible architecture of your experience. They're the filter that determines what you see, what you attempt, what you allow, and what you achieve. They're the difference between someone with average talent and extraordinary success, and someone with extraordinary talent and average success. They're the reason two people in the same circumstances end up with completely different outcomes. And the most beautiful, most empowering thing about beliefs is this: they're not fixed, they're not permanent, they're not truth, they're just programs, and programs can be rewritten. You are not bound by the beliefs you inherited. You are not stuck with the programming that was installed in you before you could think for yourself. You have the power, right now, to examine those beliefs, question them, and consciously choose new ones. This is deeper than positive thinking. This is rewiring your operating system. This is identifying the invisible saboteurs that have been undermining you and eliminating them at the root. This is claiming authorship of your own mind instead of letting ancient programming run your life. This is taking responsibility for your beliefs, which means taking control of your destiny. As you rest tonight, let your subconscious digest everything you've learned. Let it show you the beliefs that have been holding you back. Don't judge them. Don't judge yourself for having them. Just see them clearly. Thank them for trying to protect you, even if they were misguided. And then make a conscious decision. These beliefs no longer serve me. I am ready to release them and step into a new paradigm. Tomorrow, you wake up a little freer, a little less limited, a little more aware of the power you have to create your reality from the inside out. And every day after, you strengthen that freedom by choosing beliefs that empower you, beliefs that expand you, beliefs that reflect the truth of your infinite potential rather than the lie of your imagined limitation. You are not your beliefs. You are the consciousness that can observe those beliefs, question them, and change them. And that consciousness is limitless. That consciousness is powerful beyond measure. That consciousness is who you really are. Everything else is just programming. And programming can always be upgraded. The invisible beliefs that have been sabotaging you, they're about to become visible. And the moment they do, they lose their power. Welcome to your liberation. Welcome to your upgrade. Welcome to the version of you that is no longer held back by invisible chains. You are free, and you always have been. Now you just know it. Chapter 5. The Alchemy of Emotions. Transforming pain into fuel for growth. What if I told you that the emotions you've been running from, suppressing, or trying to overcome are actually your greatest source of power? That fear, anger, sadness, frustration, all the feelings you've been taught are negative, weakness, or something to be fixed, are actually raw fuel waiting to be transmuted into the very strength you're seeking? This is the ancient art of emotional alchemy, and it's one of the most misunderstood aspects of becoming unbreakable. Most people believe that strong people don't feel difficult emotions. That courage means the absence of fear. That peace means the absence of anger. That resilience means bouncing back quickly from pain. But that's not strength. That's suppression. That's not mastery. That's avoidance. And suppression and avoidance don't make you powerful. They make you fragile. Because what you resist persists, and what you deny grows stronger in the shadows. True strength isn't about not feeling. It's about feeling fully and transforming what you feel into something that serves you. It's about recognizing that emotions aren't problems to solve. They're energy to harness. Every emotion you experience is pure life force. It's power moving through your system. The question isn't whether you'll feel it. The question is, will you let it control you, or will you learn to direct it? Think about the most powerful moments of transformation in your life. Chances are, they came on the heels of intense emotion. Maybe it was a moment of such profound grief that you thought you couldn't survive, but somehow you did, and you emerged different. Maybe it was a moment of rage that finally gave you the courage to leave a toxic situation. Maybe it was a moment of fear so overwhelming that pushing through it cracked you open to a whole new level of capability. Emotion is the catalyst for change. Not comfort, not certainty, not ease. Emotion. But here's what most people do. They feel an uncomfortable emotion and immediately try to make it go away. They distract themselves. They numb themselves with food, alcohol, TV, social media, work, anything to avoid feeling what's actually happening inside. Or they judge the emotion as bad, wrong, or evidence that something is broken in them. Or they indulge the emotion, letting it consume them, becoming the emotion rather than experiencing it. None of these approaches work. All of them keep you stuck, weak, and at the mercy of your feelings. Emotional alchemy is different. It's the conscious practice of meeting your emotions exactly as they are, without judgment or resistance, and then intentionally transmuting them into higher frequencies. It's learning to be with fear until it transforms into courage, to be with anger until it transforms into determination, to be with sadness until it transforms into wisdom, to be with shame until it transforms into self-compassion. This isn't about faking positivity or bypassing pain. This is about understanding that every emotion carries information and energy, and you have the power to extract what serves you and release what doesn't. Let's start with fear, because fear is the emotion that stops more people from living their full potential than anything else. Fear of failure, fear of success, fear of judgment, fear of loss, fear of the unknown. Fear is the emotion that keeps you playing small, staying safe, and missing out on the life you're meant to live. Most people think fear is a stop sign, a warning that they shouldn't proceed, evidence that they're not ready or not capable. But fear is not a stop sign. It's a compass. It points directly toward your growth edge, toward the very thing you need to do to expand. Every single person who has ever done anything significant has felt fear. The difference between those who achieve their dreams and those who don't isn't the presence or absence of fear. It's what they do with it. Do they let fear be the voice that makes decisions? Or do they recognize fear as simply energy in their body, a sensation to be experienced rather than a truth to be believed? Here's what fear actually is. It's your nervous system's response to perceived danger. It's designed to keep you alive, which is useful when you're facing an actual physical threat. But your nervous system can't tell the difference between real danger and imagined danger. It can't tell the difference between a lion chasing you and a business presentation. It can't tell the difference between life-threatening peril and the risk of embarrassment. So it activates the same response. The rush of adrenaline, the pounding heart, the shakiness, the urge to flee or freeze. Your body is just trying to protect you. But in most modern situations, the fear response is a false alarm. When you understand this, everything changes. You stop taking fear so seriously. You stop letting it dictate your choices. You feel the sensation of fear in your body, and you recognize it for what it is. Energy. Powerful, mobilizing energy. And instead of running from it or being paralyzed by it, you redirect it. You take that surge of adrenaline and channel it into focused action. You take that heightened alertness and use it to be fully present. You take that intensity and transmute it into excitement, anticipation, aliveness. I remember the first time I truly did this. I was about to do something that terrified me. Speak in front of hundreds of people about things I cared deeply about. The old me would have interpreted the fear as evidence that I shouldn't do it, that I wasn't ready, that I'd probably fail. But I had learned by then that fear and excitement create almost identical sensations in the body. The difference is just the story you tell yourself about what's happening. So standing backstage, Heart pounding, hands shaking, I made a conscious choice. Instead of labeling what I felt as fear, I labeled it as excitement. I'm so excited right now. My body is getting ready to perform at its peak. This energy is preparing me to be brilliant. And something miraculous happened. The sensation didn't go away. It transmuted. The same energy that moments before felt like panic now felt like power. I walked on that stage not trying to overcome fear, but riding the wave of energy that fear had generated. And I gave one of the best talks of my life, not because I wasn't afraid, but because I learned to alchemize the fear into fuel. This is available to you with any emotion. Anger, for example, is one of the most misunderstood and misused emotions. Most people either suppress their anger because they've been taught it's not okay to feel it, or they express it in destructive ways that damage relationships and make situations worse. But anger, when properly understood, is pure power. It's your system's response to a boundary violation, to injustice, to something that needs to change. Anger is the emotion that says, "This is not acceptable," and mobilizes you to do something about it. The problem isn't anger itself, it's what you do with it. If you suppress it, it turns inward and becomes depression, resentment, or physical illness. If you express it unconsciously, it becomes rage, aggression, or cruelty. But if you transmute it, it becomes the force that drives you to create change. Every social movement, every revolution, every transformation in history began with someone feeling angry enough about the way things were to do something about it. Anger is the fuel of transformation. The question is, are you going to let it burn you, or are you going to let it forge you into something stronger? When you feel anger rising, don't judge it. Don't push it down. Don't lash out. Pause. Feel it fully. Notice where it lives in your body. Notice the heat, the tension, the energy. And then ask, what is this anger telling me? What boundary has been crossed? What needs to change? What am I being called to stand up for? And then channel that energy into clear, decisive action. Use it to have the difficult conversation you've been avoiding. Use it to leave the situation that's been draining you. Use it to fuel the commitment you've been too comfortable to make. This is anger transmuted. This is emotional alchemy. Sadness is another emotion that people desperately try to avoid. We live in a culture that's terrified of sadness, that sees it as weakness or dysfunction. If you're sad for more than a few days, someone wants to medicate you. But sadness, that isn't pathology. It's depth. It's your soul's way of processing loss, of honoring what mattered, of making space for something new. Sadness is the emotion of transition. It's the bridge between what was and what will be. And when you allow yourself to feel it fully, without rushing to fix it or make it go away, it transforms into something profound. Wisdom, compassion, and a capacity to be present with life's complexity. People who have never allowed themselves to be sad remain emotionally superficial. They can only handle surface-level relationships because depth requires the ability to feel deeply, and they've learned to avoid that at all costs. But when you stop running from sadness, when you let yourself grieve what needs to be grieved, something breaks open in you. Your heart expands. Your capacity for love deepens. Your authenticity strengthens. You become someone who can hold space for the full spectrum of human experience in yourself and others. This is sadness transmuted into wisdom. I spent years trying to stay positive, trying to maintain an upbeat attitude, trying to convince myself and everyone else that I was fine. And on the surface, it worked. I seemed successful, happy, put together. But underneath I was hollow. because I wasn't allowing myself to feel the grief I was carrying, grief over relationships that ended, dreams that died, versions of myself I had to let go of. I thought if I let myself feel it, I'd fall apart. But the opposite was true. The moment I stopped running from the sadness, the moment I let myself cry without trying to fix it or understand it or make it mean something, that's when I finally became whole. Not because the sadness went away, but because I finally had the courage to let it move through me. And in that movement, it transformed. It became compassion. It became presence. It became depth. This is the paradox of emotional alchemy. The only way out is through. You can't bypass your emotions and arrive at wholeness. You can't skip the difficult feelings and access your power. You can't avoid the dark and claim the light. The path to becoming unbreakable runs directly through everything you've been afraid to feel. And on the other side of that courage, the courage to feel fully, to be with what is, to transmute rather than suppress, that's where you find the strength that nothing can shake. Let's talk about shame, because shame is the emotion that destroys more lives than almost anything else. Shame is the feeling that there's something fundamentally wrong with you. Not that you did something bad, that's guilt, but that you are bad, that you're defective, unworthy, unlovable at your core. Shame lives in the shadows. It thrives in secrecy. It convinces you that if anyone really knew you, they'd reject you, and it keeps you isolated, performing, hiding behind masks, never letting anyone get close enough to see the truth. Shame cannot survive being brought into the light. The moment you speak your shame out loud, the moment you reveal what you've been hiding, its power begins to dissolve. This is why confession, sharing, and vulnerability are so healing. Not because they make the shame go away, but because they interrupt shame's primary tactic, isolation. When you share your shame with someone who responds with compassion rather than judgment, you realize that you're not uniquely broken. You're human. Everyone carries shame. Everyone has parts of themselves they're afraid to reveal. And in that shared humanity, shame transmutes into self-compassion. Self-compassion is the antidote to shame. It's the practice of treating yourself with the same kindness, understanding, and forgiveness you would offer a dear friend. Most people are incredibly hard on themselves. They have an inner critic that's relentless, vicious, and cruel. They say things to themselves they would never say to anyone else, and they think this self-criticism is necessary for growth, for motivation, for improvement. But it's not. Self-criticism doesn't make you better. It makes you smaller. It doesn't inspire you to change. It paralyzes you with shame. What actually creates transformation is self-compassion. When you can look at your flaws, your mistakes, your failures with kindness rather than condemnation, you create the safety necessary for real change. This doesn't mean letting yourself off the hook. This doesn't mean making excuses or avoiding responsibility. This means recognizing that you're doing the best you can with the awareness, resources, and capacity you have in any given moment. And when you know better, you do better. But beating yourself up for not knowing what you didn't know yet, that's not accountability, that's cruelty. And cruelty never made anyone stronger. Here's a practice for transmuting shame into self-compassion. When you notice shame arising, that feeling of being fundamentally flawed, pause. Put your hand on your heart. Feel the warmth of your own touch, and speak to yourself the way you would speak to a child who's hurting. I see you. I know you're struggling. It's okay. You're not alone. You're worthy of love exactly as you are. This might feel awkward at first. Your inner critic might resist. But do it anyway, because what you're doing is reprogramming your nervous system's default response to imperfection. Instead of attack, you're installing compassion. And over time, that compassion becomes your new baseline. Frustration is another emotion that contains tremendous power when properly channeled. Frustration is the gap between where you are and where you want to be. It's the feeling that things aren't moving fast enough, aren't working out the way you planned, aren't matching your expectations. Most people let frustration make them bitter, resigned, or cynical. They interpret it as evidence that their goals are impossible, that they're not cut out for success, that they should just give up and accept mediocrity. But frustration is actually a sign that you care, that you have standards, that you're committed to something beyond your current reality. And when you transmute frustration, it becomes the determination that refuses to quit, the creativity that finds new solutions, the persistence that outlasts every obstacle. Frustration is your system saying, "This matters to me," and generating the energy to keep going. The people who achieve extraordinary things aren't people who never felt frustrated. They're people who learn to use frustration as rocket fuel. When you feel frustrated, resist the urge to complain or give up. Instead, get curious. What is this frustration telling you? What needs to shift? What new approach do you need to try? What skill do you need to develop? What support do you need to ask for? Frustration is feedback. It's showing you where your current strategy isn't working, so you can evolve. And when you see it that way, when you use it as information rather than letting it defeat you, it transforms into motivation, into innovation, into the refusal to settle for anything less than what you know is possible. Here's what all of this comes down to. Emotions are not the enemy. They're not something to overcome, eliminate, or rise above. They're your power in its rawest form. Every emotion you feel is energy moving through your system, and energy is neutral. It's not good or bad. It's just power. The question is always, what are you going to do with this power? Let it control you? Let it leak out unconsciously? Or learn to direct it, transform it, and use it to create the life you want? The people who seem unbreakable aren't people who don't feel. They're people who feel deeply and have learned the art of transmutation. They've learned to be with their fear and extract courage, to be with their anger and extract determination, to be with their sadness and extract wisdom, to be with their shame and extract compassion, to be with their frustration and extract persistence. They've learned that emotions are the raw material of transformation, and transformation is how you become who you're meant to be. This is a practice that requires presence. You can't transmute an emotion you're not willing to feel. You can't alchemize energy you're running from. So the foundation of emotional alchemy is the willingness to be present with whatever arises, to stop labeling emotions as positive or negative, and start experiencing them as sensations, as energy, as information, to stop judging yourself for feeling and start getting curious about what you're feeling and why. Tonight, as you prepare for sleep, bring to mind an emotion you've been resisting. Maybe it's fear about something coming up. Maybe it's anger about something that happened. Maybe it's sadness you've been pushing down. Whatever it is, instead of trying to make it go away, invite it in. Feel where it lives in your body. Notice the sensation without the story. Is it tight, hot, heavy, buzzing? Just observe it with curiosity and compassion. And as you breathe, imagine that emotion as a ball of energy. See it clearly, and then watch as it begins to transform. Fear becomes courage. Anger becomes power. Sadness becomes wisdom. Shame becomes compassion. Watch the alchemy happen. Feel it in your body. Let your nervous system learn that emotions can shift, can transmute, can become something that serves you. This is not denial. This is not bypassing. This is conscious transformation. This is taking full responsibility for your emotional experience and refusing to be a victim of your feelings. This is recognizing that you are not your emotions. You are the consciousness that experiences them, learns from them, and directs them. And that consciousness is infinitely powerful. You don't need to eliminate difficult emotions to be strong. You need to learn to work with them, to honor them, to extract their gifts and release their limitations. When you stop fighting your emotions and start transmuting them, you access a level of power that most people never discover, because they're so busy running from their feelings that they never realize those feelings are the very fuel they need to become unstoppable. The alchemy of emotions is the difference between being at the mercy of your inner world and being the master of it, between being controlled by your feelings and consciously directing your energy, between emotional fragility and emotional mastery. And mastery doesn't mean you never feel difficult emotions. It means you've learned to transform them into exactly what you need. You are an alchemist. You have always been an alchemist. Every time you've turned fear into action, anger into change, sadness into depth, you've been practicing this art. Now you're just becoming conscious of it. Now you're learning to do it intentionally, consistently, powerfully. And as you do, you become unbreakable. Not because nothing can hurt you, but because everything that does transforms you into something stronger. This is your power. This is your path. This is the alchemy that turns every experience, every emotion, every challenge into the gold of wisdom, strength, and unshakable presence. Welcome to your transformation. Welcome to your mastery. Welcome to the version of you that knows how to turn everything into fuel for your evolution. Chapter 6. The Magnetic State of Being. Attracting opportunities through your vibration. There are people who seem to effortlessly attract opportunities. Doors open for them. The right people show up at the right time. Synchronicities follow them like a personal entourage. Resources materialize seemingly out of nowhere. And if you're honest, there's probably been a moment when you looked at someone like that and wondered, what do they have that I don't? What's their secret? Here's the secret, and it's going to challenge everything you've been taught about how success works. They're not doing more than you. They're being different than you. They've learned to cultivate a state of being that naturally magnetizes what they desire. They've understood that attraction isn't about action, it's about frequency. And they've mastered the art of embodying the vibration of what they want before they have any evidence that it's coming. This is not wishful thinking. This is not fantasy. This is quantum physics in action. At the most fundamental level, everything in the universe is energy vibrating at different frequencies. Your thoughts are energy. Your emotions are energy. Your beliefs are energy. And the combined signal of all that energy is what you're broadcasting out into the quantum field every single moment. That signal, your vibration, is what determines what you attract into your experience. You don't attract what you want. You attract what you are. You don't attract what you think about occasionally. You attract what you consistently feel and embody. You don't attract what you wish for or hope for. You attract what you become a vibrational match for. This is the law of resonance, and it's operating whether you're aware of it or not. The question is, Are you going to work with it consciously, or are you going to keep wondering why your life doesn't match your desires? Most people are broadcasting a frequency of lack without even realizing it. They want abundance, but they feel scarcity. They want love, but they feel unworthiness. They want success, but they feel inadequacy. They want peace, but they feel anxiety. And then they wonder why what they want never shows up. The universe isn't punishing them. The universe is simply responding to the signal they're actually sending, not the one they think they're sending or wish they were sending. Your vibration is your truth, and reality always, always mirrors it back to you. Think about how you feel when you want something you don't have. There's a tension, isn't there? A sense of yearning, of incompleteness, of something being wrong or missing in your current reality. That feeling, that energy of lack, is what you're transmitting, and the universe doesn't respond to your words or your thoughts. It responds to your frequency. When you're vibrating at the frequency of lack, you attract more situations that make you feel lack. When you're vibrating at the frequency of unworthiness, you attract more evidence of unworthiness. When you're vibrating at the frequency of struggle, you attract more struggle. This isn't punishment. This is just how energy works. But here's the beautiful, empowering truth. You can change your frequency. You can consciously cultivate a state of being that magnetizes what you desire. You can learn to embody the feeling of already having what you want, and when you do that consistently enough, reality has no choice but to rearrange itself to match. This is not magical thinking. This is understanding that you create from the inside out, not the outside in. The magnetic state of being is the frequency of fulfillment. It's the energy of already having, already being, already living the reality you desire. It's not pretending. It's not faking it. It's genuinely cultivating the emotions, the thoughts, the energy of your desired reality so consistently that your body doesn't know the difference between imagination and actuality. And when your body believes you're already there, it stops sending out signals of lack, desperation, or need. It starts broadcasting abundance, worthiness, and confidence. And that frequency changes everything. Let me tell you about a time when I discovered this truth in a way I couldn't deny. I was struggling financially. Every month was a scramble to pay bills. I was stressed, anxious, constantly worrying about money. And the more I worried, the worse it got. Unexpected expenses kept appearing. Opportunities kept falling through. I was working harder than ever and getting nowhere. I thought the problem was that I needed to do more, work harder, find better strategies. But the problem wasn't my actions, it was my state of being. I was living in the frequency of scarcity. Every morning I woke up feeling stressed about money. Every decision was filtered through, can I afford this? Every interaction carried the energy of, I need something from you. I was literally broadcasting desperation and lack, and the universe was responding exactly as it should, by giving me more situations that matched that frequency. I was stuck in a loop, and I couldn't see my way out. Then someone asked me a question that changed everything. How would you feel if money was never an issue? Not someday. Right now. What would that feel like in your body? At first, I couldn't even access it. The gap between my current reality and that feeling seemed too vast. But I kept asking myself that question. I kept imagining what it would feel like to wake up with complete financial freedom, to make decisions based on what I wanted rather than what I could afford, to feel abundant, generous, and relaxed around money. And slowly, I started to feel it. Not because my circumstances changed. They hadn't. but because I stopped making my feelings dependent on my circumstances. I chose to cultivate the feeling of abundance, regardless of what my bank account said. I practiced feeling wealthy, feeling free, feeling grateful for resources that hadn't even shown up yet. It felt crazy at first, like I was lying to myself, but I kept doing it. Every morning before I looked at my finances, I would spend time embodying the frequency of abundance, feeling it in my body, thinking from that place, being that version of myself. And then the miracles started. An unexpected check arrived. A new opportunity appeared out of nowhere. Someone offered to help in a way I never would have anticipated. Things started flowing instead of forcing. And it wasn't because I suddenly got lucky. It was because I changed my frequency. I stopped broadcasting lack and started broadcasting abundance. And reality, as it always does, reflected back what I was putting out. This is available to you. This is available to everyone. But you have to understand something crucial. You cannot fake your frequency. You can't just think positive thoughts while feeling terrible and expect anything to change. Your subconscious knows the truth. Your body knows the truth. And that's what gets broadcast. This is why affirmations alone rarely work. You can say, "I am abundant," 1,000 times. But if you don't feel abundant, if your body doesn't embody that state, you're just making noise. The universe responds to your being, not your words. So how do you cultivate a magnetic state of being? How do you genuinely shift your frequency to match what you desire? It starts with understanding that you're not trying to manifest things. You're trying to become the person who naturally attracts those things. You're not trying to get something you don't have. You're trying to align with the version of yourself who already has it. This is a subtle but profound distinction. One keeps you in lack. The other puts you in the creative flow. Think about the person you would be if you already had everything you desire. Not the things themselves, but who you would be. How would you carry yourself? How would you speak? How would you show up in the world? What would your energy be like? Would you be desperate or confident? Grasping or generous? Anxious or peaceful? Closed or open? That version of you, that's your magnetic state. That's the frequency you're cultivating. And here's what most people miss. You don't have to wait for circumstances to change before you become that person. You can be that person right now. You can embody that energy, that confidence, that peace, that generosity today, in this moment, regardless of what your current reality looks like. And when you do, when you consistently choose to be that version of yourself, reality begins to shift, not because you're forcing it or manipulating it, but because you've changed the signal you're broadcasting, and the universe is simply matching the new frequency. This requires practice. Your default state, the frequency you return to when you're not paying attention. That's been programmed over years, maybe decades. It's a habit, and habits don't change overnight. But every time you catch yourself in a low frequency and consciously choose to shift, you're reprogramming. Every time you feel lack and choose to cultivate abundance anyway, you're building new neural pathways. Every time you feel unworthy and choose to embody worthiness regardless, you're training your nervous system to operate at a higher baseline. The magnetic state isn't something you have to maintain perfectly every second. That's not realistic and would create more stress than benefit. What matters is your dominant frequency, the state you spend most of your time in. If you spend 80% of your time in fear, doubt, and lack, and 20% of your time in confidence, abundance, and trust, the 80% wins. That's what you're broadcasting. That's what you'll attract. But if you can shift those percentages, if you can spend more time in elevated states than in contracted ones, everything changes. The tipping point is when your magnetic state becomes your default, when you naturally return to that frequency without effort. One of the most powerful ways to cultivate this state is through gratitude, but not the superficial kind where you just list things you're thankful for. I'm talking about the kind of gratitude that makes you feel it in your bones, the kind that brings tears to your eyes, the kind that stops you in your tracks and makes you realize how blessed you already are. This level of gratitude is a high-frequency emotion. It's the energy of abundance. And when you can access genuine gratitude regularly, you're training your system to vibrate at the frequency of I have instead of I need. But here's what makes gratitude truly transformative. Being grateful for what hasn't manifested yet. Being grateful for the opportunities that are on their way. Being grateful for the abundance that's organizing itself behind the scenes. Being grateful for the miracles that are about to unfold. This isn't delusion. This is faith. This is trusting that the universe is responding to your new frequency and arranging circumstances to match. When you can feel genuinely grateful for what's coming before you see evidence of it, you've mastered the magnetic state, because you're living in the feeling of already having it. And that's the frequency that collapses infinite possibilities into physical reality. Another key to maintaining a magnetic state is protecting your energy from frequency pollution. We talked about emotional shields in an earlier chapter, and that's part of it. But I'm also talking about being conscious of what you expose yourself to. The news broadcasts fear, scarcity, and chaos. Social media often triggers comparison, inadequacy, and envy. Certain people drain your energy and pull you into lower frequencies. None of this makes you bad for engaging with it, but you have to be honest about its effect on your vibration. If you're trying to cultivate a magnetic state of abundance, confidence, and possibility, but you're constantly consuming content that makes you feel fearful, inadequate, or hopeless, you're fighting an uphill battle. You're trying to broadcast one frequency while being bombarded with another. This doesn't mean you have to live in a bubble or pretend difficult things don't exist. It means being selective about what you allow into your field and when. It means asking, is this raising my frequency or lowering it? Is this helping me embody my magnetic state or pulling me out of it? The people you spend time with also affect your frequency dramatically. We talked about this in the context of energy protection, but it's worth revisiting here. You become like the 5 people you spend the most time with, not just in terms of habits or attitudes, but in terms of frequency. If you're surrounded by people who vibrate at fear, lack, and limitation, you'll have to work much harder to maintain a magnetic state. If you're surrounded by people who vibrate at abundance, possibility, and expansion, their frequency will support and amplify yours. This doesn't mean you have to cut everyone out of your life who isn't at your frequency, but it does mean being conscious of who you allow into your inner circle, who you turn to for advice, who you spend your free time with, who influences your thoughts and feelings. You have limited energy, and you get to choose how you invest it. Investing it in relationships that elevate your frequency is one of the most powerful choices you can make. Now let's talk about action, because this is where people often get confused. Some people hear about vibration and attraction and think they don't have to do anything, that they can just sit around visualizing and everything will appear. That's not how it works. Others think that action is everything and vibration doesn't matter. That's also not true. The truth is in the integration. You need both aligned state and inspired action. Aligned state creates the frequency that attracts opportunities. Inspired action allows you to recognize and receive those opportunities when they appear. If you're in a magnetic state, but you never act, you'll see opportunities, but not seize them. If you take massive action, but you're in a contracted state, you'll work hard, but it will feel like pushing a boulder uphill. The magic happens when your internal state and your external actions are aligned. Inspired action feels different than forced action. Forced action comes from fear, from should, from trying to make something happen. It feels heavy, effortful, and exhausting. Inspired action comes from alignment, from intuition, from following what feels right. It feels lighter, more natural, more flowing. It's action that emerges from your magnetic state rather than from desperation or lack. When you're in a magnetic state, you'll get impulses, an urge to reach out to someone, an idea to try something new, a feeling to go somewhere you wouldn't normally go. These aren't random. They're your internal guidance system responding to the opportunities that your frequency has attracted. But you have to act on them. You have to trust them. You have to follow the thread, even when you don't see the whole picture. This is how synchronicity works. This is how miracles happen, not through planning and forcing, but through alignment and allowing. Let me give you a practice for cultivating and embodying your magnetic state. Every morning, before you engage with the outside world, before you check your phone or think about your to-do list, spend time feeling into the frequency you want to embody. Not just thinking about what you want, but feeling what it would feel like to already be living that reality. If you want financial abundance, feel wealthy. If you want deep love, feel loved. If you want creative success, feel successful. Let those feelings saturate your body. Let your nervous system memorize this state as your new normal. And then, as you move through your day, check in with your frequency regularly. Are you still in your magnetic state, or have you slipped into a contracted frequency? When you notice you've slipped, and you will, because old patterns are strong, pause, breathe, return to the feeling. This isn't about perfection. It's about direction. Every time you choose to return to your magnetic state, you're strengthening that pathway. You're making it easier to access. You're training your system to live there more often than not. At night, before sleep, review your day from the perspective of your magnetic state. Where did you act from alignment? Where did you receive signs or synchronicities? Where did you slip out of your frequency? Don't judge any of it. Just observe. And then, as you drift off to sleep, anchor yourself in the feeling of your magnetic state one more time. Let it be the last thing your consciousness experiences before you enter the subconscious realm of sleep, where the deepest reprogramming happens. This practice, done consistently, will change your life. Not because it's magic, but because it's science. Because you're literally reprogramming your nervous system, retraining your thoughts, and restructuring your energy field to operate at a frequency that naturally attracts what you desire. You're becoming a magnet, not through manipulation, but through alignment with the fundamental laws of the universe. And here's what's beautiful. As you become more magnetic, as you embody your desired frequency more consistently, you'll notice that life starts to feel easier. Not because challenges disappear, but because you're no longer creating unnecessary resistance. You're flowing with the current instead of swimming against it. Opportunities appear with less effort. Synchronicities become normal. The right people show up. Resources materialize. And you realize that you're not forcing any of it. You're just allowing what was always available once you matched the frequency. This is what it means to be unbreakable, not just to withstand challenges, but to attract the circumstances, people, and opportunities that align with your highest self. Not just to survive, but to thrive. Not just to endure, but to create. And you do it not through more doing, but through more being. Through embodying the magnetic state that makes you irresistible to the life you're meant to live. You are not separate from the universe. You are not a small, powerless being at the mercy of circumstances. You are a powerful creator, a living magnet, a vibrational being with the ability to attract or repel based on the frequency you choose to embody. And now that you know this, now that you understand how it works, you can never unknow it. You can never go back to being a victim of circumstance. You can only move forward into the conscious creation of your reality through the magnetic power of your state of being. Feel that power now. Feel yourself as the magnet you truly are. Feel the opportunities already moving toward you, drawn by the frequency you're cultivating. Feel your life reorganizing itself to match your new vibration. This isn't fantasy. This is you, finally aligned with the truth of who you are and how reality works. This is you, becoming magnetic. This is you, becoming unstoppable. Chapter 7. The Daily Resilience. Ritual building, unbreakable strength through integrated practices. Transformation isn't a single event. It's not a moment of insight that changes everything forever. It's not reading the right book, attending the right seminar, or having the right conversation. Those things can catalyze change, but they don't create lasting transformation by themselves. Real, permanent change happens through practice, through daily choices, through the consistent cultivation of who you're becoming, until that version of you becomes who you simply are. This is where most people fail, not because they don't understand the concepts, not because they don't want to change, but because they treat transformation like an event rather than a process. They get inspired, they make big changes for a week or two, and then they drift back to their old patterns. They read about quantum reprogramming, emotional alchemy, and magnetic states, and they think, I get it now, without ever integrating these principles into their daily life. And nothing changes, because knowing isn't the same as being. Understanding isn't the same as embodying. Insight without practice is just entertainment. If you want to become unbreakable, you need a daily practice that weaves all these principles into the fabric of your life, not as separate exercises that you do and then forget about, but as an integrated ritual that becomes as natural as breathing, a way of being that you return to every morning, every evening, and throughout your day. This ritual isn't something you add to your life. It becomes the foundation of your life. It's how you build resilience, one day at a time, until resilience is simply who you are. Let me be clear about something. This isn't about adding more to your already busy schedule. This isn't about creating complicated routines that require hours of time you don't have. This is about creating a simple, powerful practice that anchors you in your truth, connects you to your power, and sets the frequency for everything else you do. The ritual I'm going to share with you takes less time than scrolling through social media in the morning, but its impact is exponentially greater, because what you do in those first moments of your day determines the quality of the entire day that follows. Your morning is sacred, not in a religious sense, but in the sense that it's the moment when you have the most power to direct your consciousness, Before the world starts making demands on your attention, your mind is fresh. Your energy is full. Your subconscious is still accessible from the night's sleep. This is prime time for programming, for setting your frequency, for choosing who you're going to be today. Most people waste this sacred time by immediately checking their phone, scrolling through news or social media, reacting to emails, letting other people's priorities become their own. They give away their power before they've even claimed it. Your morning ritual begins the moment you open your eyes, not after you've checked your phone, not after you've scrolled through messages, not after you've let the world invade your consciousness. The very first moment of awareness is when you make a choice. Who am I today? What frequency do I choose? What state of being will I embody? These questions aren't rhetorical. They're literal invitations to consciously create your experience, rather than unconsciously react to whatever shows up. Before you get out of bed, before you move into action, take a breath, a deep, conscious breath that brings you fully into your body, fully into this moment. Feel yourself here, alive, present. This breath is your anchor. It's your return to center. It's your reminder that you have a choice in how you experience this day. One breath. That's all it takes to shift from unconscious reactivity to conscious creation. And then another breath, and another. Just 3 conscious breaths can change your entire nervous system's baseline for the day. As you breathe, bring to mind the version of yourself you've been cultivating throughout this journey. The powerful, magnetic, resilient version who knows their worth, protects their energy, transmutes their emotions, and attracts their desires. Feel that version of yourself, not as something separate or future, but as something present, here, now. This is you. This is who you're choosing to be today. Let that knowing settle into your body with each breath. I am powerful. I am protected. I am magnetic. I am unbreakable. Not as affirmations you're trying to convince yourself of, but as truths you're remembering. And then, still in this quiet space before the day begins, cultivate the emotion of your magnetic state. Not thinking about what you want, but feeling what it feels like to already have it. If abundance is your focus, feel abundant. Let gratitude for resources that haven't even appeared yet fill your body. If love is your focus, feel loved. Let the warmth of deep connection saturate your cells. If success is your focus, feel successful. Let the satisfaction of achievement become real in this moment. Your body doesn't know the difference between what's happening and what you're generating through focused emotion, so generate the feeling of your desired reality. Make it so real that your nervous system accepts it as current truth. This morning practice isn't long, 5 minutes, maybe 10 if you want to go deeper, but these few minutes set the foundation for everything else. You're not just thinking positive thoughts. You're programming your subconscious, setting your frequency, and priming your nervous system for the day ahead. You're literally changing your biology, your energy field, and your relationship with reality. And you're doing it before you've encountered a single challenge, a single distraction, or a single person who might pull you off center. Now, as you move into your day, the ritual continues, not as something separate, but woven into your experience. Throughout the day, you'll encounter moments that test your resilience, moments that trigger old patterns, moments that invite you to slip back into fear, doubt, or lack. These aren't obstacles to your practice. They are your practice. Every challenge is an opportunity to strengthen your unbreakable core. Every trigger is a chance to choose your response, rather than react unconsciously. Every difficult moment is a test. Will you stay in your power, or will you give it away? This is where the breath becomes your most powerful tool. When you feel yourself getting pulled into reactivity, into stress, into contraction, breathe. Not shallow, anxious breathing, but deep, grounding breaths that bring you back to your center. 3 conscious breaths can interrupt any pattern. They can create space between stimulus and response. They can return you to choice. Inhale, drawing in clarity and power. Exhale, releasing whatever isn't serving you. This isn't just a relaxation technique. It's a reprogramming mechanism. Every conscious breath reinforces your sovereignty over your state. And as you breathe, you can anchor yourself with a simple practice that I call the power phrase. This is a short statement, just a few words, that reminds you of your truth when you're being pulled into illusion. It could be as simple as, I am grounded, or I am sovereign, or this doesn't shake me. The specific words don't matter as much as the feeling they evoke. Choose a phrase that reconnects you to your unbreakable core, and use it whenever you need to reset. Say it silently. Feel it deeply. Let it call you back to yourself. I learned the power of this practice during one of the most challenging periods of my life. Everything seemed to be falling apart. Relationships were ending. Projects were failing. Money was tight. Old fears were surfacing with a vengeance. I could feel myself spiraling, losing my grip on the state I had worked so hard to cultivate. And in that moment, I realized I had a choice. I could let the circumstances determine my state, or I could use my state to navigate the circumstances. I chose a power phrase. I am the calm in the chaos. Every time I felt panic rising, I would breathe and repeat those words, not trying to convince myself that everything was fine. It clearly wasn't. But reminding myself that I had the capacity to remain centered, even when things were turbulent. At first it felt like a lie, like I was pretending, but I kept doing it. Breath and phrase, and slowly something shifted. The phrase started to feel true. My nervous system started to believe it, and even though the external circumstances didn't immediately change, my experience of them did. I found stability within instability. I found power in the midst of chaos. I found my unbreakable core. This is what the daily ritual does. It doesn't prevent challenges. It doesn't make life easy or smooth or perfectly aligned. It gives you something far more valuable, the ability to remain yourself regardless of what's happening around you. The resilience to meet whatever arises without losing your center. The strength to keep choosing your state, even when everything is inviting you to collapse. The midday check-in is another crucial element of the ritual. Somewhere around the middle of your day, pause. Step away from whatever you're doing for just a moment. Close your eyes if you can. Take 3 conscious breaths and ask yourself, how am I doing? Not in terms of productivity or accomplishment, but in terms of state. Am I still in my power, or have I drifted? Am I still in my magnetic frequency, or have I slipped into contraction? No judgment, just awareness. And if you've drifted, which is natural, which is human, use this moment to return. Breathe. Feel your power phrase. Reconnect with the emotion of your magnetic state. Reset. This midday reset takes 2 minutes, maybe 3, but it prevents you from spending the entire day in a contracted state without even realizing it. It gives you an opportunity to course correct before you've completely lost your way. Think of it like a ship that's crossing the ocean. If it's off course by just a few degrees and no one corrects it, It will end up thousands of miles from its destination. But if the captain checks the heading regularly and makes small adjustments, the ship arrives exactly where it's meant to be. You are the captain of your consciousness. This midday check-in is how you ensure you're still on course. As evening approaches and your day winds down, the ritual deepens. This is when you begin to transition from the external world back to your internal world. This is when you start to release what the day brought and prepare your consciousness for the powerful reprogramming that happens during sleep. Your evening ritual is not about reviewing your to-do list or planning tomorrow's tasks. It's about clearing your energy, integrating your experiences, and setting the stage for subconscious transformation. Begin your evening ritual by releasing the day. This is a practice of letting go, not in a spiritual bypass way where you pretend everything is fine, but in a conscious way where you acknowledge what happened and choose not to carry it into your night. Think about your day. What moments triggered you? What conversations stayed with you? What emotions are you still holding? Don't analyze them or figure them out. Just acknowledge them, and then, with each exhale, release them. See them leaving your body like smoke dissolving into air. You don't need to carry today's energy into tomorrow. You can let it go. After you've released, it's time to anchor. This is when you reconnect with the core truths you've been cultivating. You might place your hand on your heart, feeling the warmth of your own touch, and speak directly to yourself with compassion. You showed up today. You did your best with the awareness and capacity you had. You're still here. You're still growing. You're still becoming. This isn't about false positivity. This is about genuine self-acknowledgement, about recognizing your humanity and your effort, about offering yourself the kindness you would offer someone you love. And then comes the most powerful part of the evening. Ritual. The pre-sleep reprogramming. This is when your conscious mind begins to quiet and your subconscious becomes incredibly receptive. This is the golden window for deep transformation. As you settle into bed, as your body relaxes and your breathing deepens, you consciously guide your mind to the states and truths you want to integrate. You don't force it. You don't try hard. You simply feel into the version of yourself you're becoming. You embody the magnetic state. You feel the emotions of your desired reality. You let your last conscious thoughts be about power, abundance, love, strength, whatever you want to program into your deepest mind. Some nights, you might focus on releasing a limiting belief. Feel it dissolving, see it leaving your system, and consciously install a new belief in its place. Other nights, you might focus on emotional alchemy, transmuting any residual fear or anger into courage and determination. Other nights, you might simply rest in gratitude, feeling thankful for the transformation that's unfolding, for the growth that's happening, for the life that's reorganizing itself around your new frequency. The specific focus can vary, but the intention remains constant. You are using this sacred time to reprogram yourself at the deepest level. What makes this ritual so powerful is that it's not separate from your life. It is your life. Morning, midday, evening, and night. You're practicing the same principles in different ways. You're not trying to be one person during meditation and a different person during the day. You're integrating these practices so deeply that they become who you are. The morning sets your frequency. The midday maintains it. The evening clears and resets. The night programs it into your subconscious. It's a complete system, a daily cycle that builds resilience through repetition until resilience is your natural state. And here's what happens when you practice this ritual consistently. You stop feeling like you're working on yourself all the time. You stop feeling like transformation is this effortful thing you have to maintain through sheer willpower. Instead, it becomes natural. Your elevated state becomes your baseline. Your power becomes your default. Your resilience becomes automatic. You still face challenges, but they don't destabilize you the way they used to. You still feel difficult emotions, but you know how to transmute them. You still encounter people and situations that used to trigger you, but they no longer have power over your state. This is what daily practice creates. Not perfection, but mastery. Not the absence of difficulty, but the presence of unshakable strength. Not a life without storms, but the ability to remain centered in any storm. And the beautiful thing is that this doesn't require you to become someone you're not. It requires you to become more of who you truly are. More present, more conscious, more aligned with your power, more anchored in your truth. I won't lie to you and say this is easy. Some days, you'll forget. Some days, you'll be too tired, or too stressed, or too distracted. Some days, you'll go through the motions without really feeling it. That's okay. That's human. What matters is that you return, that you recommit, that you don't let one missed day become a week, or a week become a month. The power isn't in perfect consistency. It's in persistent return. Every time you come back to the practice, you're strengthening it. Every time you choose the ritual over the autopilot, you're building new pathways. Every time you remember who you are, you're making it harder to forget. This ritual isn't another thing on your to-do list. It's not one more obligation in an already overwhelming life. It's the thing that makes everything else possible. It's your anchor when everything is shifting. It's your power source when you feel depleted. It's your reminder when you forget. It's your practice when you want to give up. It's how you become unbreakable, not through one dramatic transformation, but through 1,000 small choices made daily that compound into a completely different way of being. So tonight, as you drift into sleep, commit to this practice. Not perfectly, not forever, just for tomorrow. Just for the next morning when you open your eyes and have a choice about who you're going to be. Choose the ritual. Choose the breath. Choose the frequency. Choose yourself. And then do it again. The next day. And the next. Until it's not something you do. It's who you are. You are building something here. With every breath, every choice, every moment of return to your power, you're constructing an unbreakable foundation. You're creating a version of yourself that can weather any storm, transmute any pain, and attract any reality. You're becoming someone who doesn't just survive, you thrive. Someone who doesn't just endure, you create. Someone who doesn't just cope, you transform. This is your daily resilience ritual. This is your practice of power. This is how you become unbreakable, one conscious moment at a time. Welcome to the practice that will change everything. Welcome to the ritual that makes transformation permanent. Welcome to the daily choice that creates an extraordinary life. Chapter 8. The Physics of the Impossible. Reprogramming your brain to see possibilities. What if everything you believe is impossible is only impossible because you believe it? What if the limitations you accept as reality are just the boundaries of your current perception? What if the life you think is out of reach is actually waiting for you to expand your mind enough to see it? This isn't motivational hype. This is neuroscience. Your brain has a filtering system called the reticular activating system, and its job is to determine what information from the billions of bits of data around you actually makes it into your conscious awareness. You can't process everything. You'd be overwhelmed in seconds. So your brain filters. And what does it filter for? Whatever you've told it is important. Whatever you believe is possible. Whatever matches your existing worldview. This means you're literally walking through a world of infinite possibilities, but you're only seeing the tiny fraction that your brain has been programmed to recognize. You're not seeing reality as it is. You're seeing reality as you are. And if you are someone who believes certain things are impossible, your brain will obligingly filter out any evidence to the contrary. It will make sure you never see the opportunities, the pathways, the solutions that would prove your limitations wrong. Not because those things don't exist, but because your brain is loyally giving you exactly what you've told it to look for. Confirmation of your beliefs. Think about the last time you were considering buying a car. Suddenly that exact model seemed to be everywhere. You saw it on every street, in every parking lot, in every color. Did everyone suddenly buy that car at the same time? No. Those cars were always there. But your brain wasn't filtering for them until you decided they mattered. The moment you focused on that car, your reticular activating system said, "Okay, that's important now," and started showing it to you everywhere. This same mechanism is operating with possibilities and impossibilities. If you believe something is impossible for you, your brain filters out every piece of evidence that contradicts that belief. It literally blinds you to the opportunities, connections, and pathways that would make that thing possible. You could walk past your breakthrough moment and not even notice it, because your brain has been programmed to see that category of possibility as not for me, and therefore not relevant. This is why two people can be in the exact same environment, with access to the exact same resources, and have completely different outcomes. They're not in different realities. They're seeing different realities based on what their brains have been programmed to recognize as possible. So the question becomes, how do you reprogram your brain to see possibilities that are currently invisible to you? How do you expand your perception beyond the limitations you've inherited, absorbed, and accepted as truth? How do you train your brain to start filtering for breakthrough instead of filtering for confirmation of your limitations? It starts with understanding that your brain is extraordinarily plastic. Neuroplasticity isn't just about recovering from injury or learning new skills. It's about fundamentally rewiring how you perceive and interact with reality. Your neural pathways are not fixed. The lens through which you see the world can be completely reconstructed. The beliefs that determine what you notice and what you ignore can be reprogrammed. You are not stuck with the perceptual filters you currently have. You can install new ones. But here's what most people don't understand. You can't think your way into new perception. You can't just decide to see differently and expect your brain to comply. Your brain doesn't respond to logic. It responds to evidence. It needs proof. It needs experiences that contradict your current programming. It needs to encounter possibilities you believed were impossible so many times that it can no longer maintain the old belief. This is why affirmations alone don't create change. Your brain hears you saying, "I can do this," while simultaneously seeing evidence that you haven't done it yet, and the evidence always wins. The filter stays in place. Real reprogramming happens when you deliberately put yourself in situations that challenge your existing beliefs about what's possible. When you take actions that your current identity says you can't take. When you reach for outcomes that your current mindset says are out of reach. Not recklessly, not without strategy, but consistently, intentionally, and with full awareness that you're not just trying to achieve something. You're trying to prove to your brain that your limitations are negotiable. Let me tell you about the time I discovered this truth in a way I couldn't ignore. I had convinced myself that a particular level of success wasn't possible for me. I had all kinds of rational reasons why. My background, my education, my connections, my resources, or lack thereof. I had built an entire logical case for why that ceiling was real. And my brain, being the loyal servant it is, made sure I never saw any evidence that contradicted that belief. Every time an opportunity appeared that could have led to that level of success, I either didn't notice it, or I talked myself out of it with perfectly reasonable-sounding explanations. Then I met someone who had achieved exactly what I thought was impossible, and they had started from a position far more challenging than mine. This created what psychologists call cognitive dissonance, a direct contradiction between my belief and undeniable evidence. My brain had two choices: maintain the old belief and dismiss this person as an anomaly, or update the belief to account for new data. For a while I tried the first option. I found reasons why their success didn't apply to me. But the evidence kept mounting. I kept encountering people who had done what I believed was impossible, and finally my brain had no choice but to update the filter. The moment that happened, everything changed. Not externally. My circumstances were the same. But suddenly I started seeing opportunities I had been blind to, connections I hadn't noticed, pathways that had always been there but were invisible through my old filter. It was like someone had turned on the lights in a room I thought was empty. The room was never empty. I just couldn't see what was in it. My brain was finally filtering for a different category of possibility, and reality looked completely different. This is what's available to you. But you have to actively challenge your beliefs about what's impossible. You have to seek out evidence that contradicts your limitations. You have to expose yourself to people, ideas, and experiences that expand what you think is achievable. Your brain will resist this. It prefers the comfort of the known, even if the known is limiting. It will offer you every logical reason to stay within your current boundaries. It will make the impossible seem sensible, and the possible seem ridiculous. This is not your brain being mean. This is your brain trying to protect you from the discomfort of cognitive dissonance, from the uncertainty of new territory, from the vulnerability of trying something you might fail at. But here's what you need to understand. That discomfort is the sensation of growth. That uncertainty is the feeling of possibility opening. That vulnerability is the price of expansion. If you want to see what you've never seen, you have to be willing to feel what you've never felt. You have to be willing to challenge every story you've told yourself about why certain things aren't possible for you. And you have to be willing to gather evidence, not through passive observation, but through active experimentation, that proves those stories wrong. One of the most powerful ways to reprogram your brain for possibility is through the practice of acting as if. This doesn't mean pretending or being inauthentic. It means consciously behaving the way the version of you who has already achieved the impossible would behave. How would that version of you make decisions? How would they spend their time? How would they respond to challenges? How would they carry themselves? When you consistently act from that identity, your brain starts to accumulate evidence that maybe, just maybe, that version of you is more real than the limited version you've been living as. Your brain is always looking for patterns. It's always trying to predict what will happen next, based on what has happened before. This is useful for survival, but it's limiting for growth, because if your brain only recognizes patterns from your past, It can only create futures that look like that past. But when you start acting as if a new future is already real, you create new patterns, you generate new data, you give your brain evidence of a different reality, and slowly, that reality starts to feel more true than the old one. I started doing this in small ways at first. When I caught myself making decisions from scarcity, from limitation, from "I can't afford that," or "I'm not ready for that," I would pause and ask, how would the version of me who has already achieved what I want handle this decision? And then I would make that choice, even if it felt uncomfortable, even if it seemed premature, even if my logical mind protested. Not recklessly. I'm not talking about making financially irresponsible decisions or taking foolish risks. I'm talking about making choices that align with where you're going, rather than where you've been. Each time I did this, something interesting happened. The choice didn't kill me. The sky didn't fall. Often nothing dramatic happened at all. But my brain noted it, recorded it, filed it away as evidence that maybe the old limitations weren't as solid as they seemed. And over time, those small pieces of evidence accumulated into a new pattern, a new filter, a new sense of what was possible. The impossible started to look merely difficult. The difficult started to look doable. The doable started to look inevitable. Another crucial practice for expanding your perception of possibility is surrounding yourself with evidence of what you want to achieve. Not in a superficial vision board way, though that can be part of it, but in a deep, immersive way. If you want to achieve something you currently believe is impossible, you need to regularly expose yourself to people who have done it, stories of how it was done, environments where that achievement is normal. You need to normalize what currently feels exceptional. You need to make your brain understand that what you're reaching for isn't some distant fantasy. It's something real people have actually accomplished. This is why mentorship is so powerful, why masterminds work, why surrounding yourself with people who are where you want to be changes everything. It's not just about learning their strategies, though that's valuable. It's about reprogramming your filter. When you're regularly in the presence of people who have achieved what you want to achieve, your brain can no longer categorize it as impossible. It becomes real, tangible, achievable. Your reticular activating system starts filtering for the pathways that lead there, instead of filtering for the reasons it can't happen. But you don't need constant access to these people to benefit from this principle. You can read their stories, watch their interviews, study their journeys, consume content that expands your sense of what's possible, rather than content that confirms your limitations. Most people do the opposite. They consume content that makes them feel comfortable, that confirms their current worldview, that validates their limitations. And then they wonder why nothing changes. Your inputs determine your outputs. If you're feeding your brain a steady diet of limitation, scarcity, and impossibility, that's what it will show you in your reality. Now let's talk about the role of language in shaping your perception of possibility. The words you use, both out loud and in your internal dialogue, are programming instructions for your brain. When you say, "I can't," your brain hears a command and stops looking for solutions. When you say, "That's impossible," your brain filters out any evidence to the contrary. When you say, "I'm not the kind of person who," you're literally instructing your brain to maintain that identity and ignore any data that suggests otherwise. But when you shift your language, you shift your filter. Instead of, "I can't," try, "I haven't figured out how yet." Instead of, "That's impossible," try, "That would require me to grow in new ways." Instead of, I'm not the kind of person who. Try I'm becoming the kind of person who. These aren't just semantic games. These are fundamentally different instructions to your brain. One set of instructions closes doors, the other opens them. One maintains the current filter, the other begins to expand it. I'm not suggesting toxic positivity or pretending limitations don't exist. Real obstacles exist. Real challenges exist. But most of what you call impossible isn't actually impossible. It's just outside your current filter, beyond your current perception, incompatible with your current identity. And all of those things can change. When you understand that your sense of what's possible is not objective reality, but rather a reflection of your current programming, you reclaim enormous power. Because programming can be rewritten. Here's a practice that directly rewires your brain for expanded possibility. Every night before sleep, recall a moment from your day when you encountered something you previously thought was impossible. Either something you achieved, something you witnessed, or something you learned about. It doesn't have to be dramatic. Maybe you had a conversation you thought you couldn't have. Maybe you took an action you thought you weren't capable of. Maybe you learned about someone who achieved something you thought was unreachable. Recall that moment in vivid detail. Feel the surprise, the expansion, the sense of, maybe I was wrong about what's possible. Let that feeling saturate your body as you drift into sleep. You're programming your subconscious to seek out more evidence of expanded possibility. You're training your brain to look for proof that your limitations are negotiable. And then, in the morning, before you encounter any evidence to the contrary, before the world has a chance to reinforce your old filters, ask yourself, what would I attempt if I knew it was possible? Not, what do I want? That's too abstract. What specific action would I take today if I genuinely believed the outcome I desire was achievable? And then, and this is crucial, take that action. Not someday, today. Even if it's a small action, even if your logical mind is screaming that it's pointless, take it anyway. Because you're not just trying to achieve an outcome. You're trying to gather evidence for your brain that the impossible is possible. Each time you do this, you're creating a new neural pathway. You're building evidence. You're expanding your filter. And here's what's beautiful. The brain is a pattern recognition machine, and it loves consistency. When you consistently act from expanded possibility, when you consistently challenge your limitations, when you consistently gather evidence that contradicts your old beliefs, your brain eventually updates. Not because you convinced it with logic, but because you overwhelmed it with data. The new pattern becomes stronger than the old one. The new filter becomes your default. And suddenly what was impossible becomes your new normal. This is not about becoming delusional. This is not about ignoring reality or pretending limitations don't exist. This is about recognizing that much of what you call reality is actually just the current limits of your perception. And perception can expand infinitely. The person who believes something is impossible and the person who believes it's possible are both right. Not because reality itself is different, but because they're operating with different filters that literally cause them to see and experience different opportunities, different pathways, different possibilities. You've already done impossible things. Think about it. You've overcome challenges you thought would destroy you. You've achieved things you once believed were out of reach. You've become someone you couldn't have imagined being years ago. Every impossible thing you've done started as something you believed you couldn't do, until evidence forced your brain to update its filter. You've been doing this your whole life. You just haven't been doing it consciously. Now you are. Now you understand the mechanism. Now you can deliberately use it to expand into possibilities that currently seem as impossible as your past achievements once seemed. The physics of the impossible is simple. Nothing is impossible until you believe it is, and nothing remains impossible once you gather enough evidence to contradict that belief. Your brain is not your enemy in this process. It's your partner. It wants to keep you safe. And for most of human history, safety meant staying within known boundaries. But we don't live in that world anymore. The greatest danger now isn't taking risks. It's playing so small that you never discover what you're capable of. It's accepting limitations that aren't real simply because you never challenged them. It's living inside a tiny fraction of what's possible because your filter keeps you from seeing anything beyond it. Tonight, as you close your eyes and your conscious mind begins to quiet, I want you to imagine your brain as a vast universe with infinite potential. Picture the filter that's been limiting your perception. See it as a thick fog that's been obscuring most of what's available. And then, with your breath, with your intention, with your willingness to expand, watch that fog begin to lift. See new possibilities coming into view, opportunities you couldn't see before, pathways that were always there but invisible through your old filter. Feel your perception expanding. Feel your sense of what's possible growing. Let your brain know that you're ready to see more, to recognize more, to achieve more. You're not forcing anything. You're simply removing the blinders that have been limiting your vision. And as you drift into sleep, let this truth settle into your deepest consciousness. The impossible is only impossible until someone does it, and that someone could be you. Not because you're special or chosen or different from everyone else, but because you understand now that impossibility is a belief, not a fact, and beliefs can change. Filters can expand, perception can grow, and when they do, reality itself seems to transform, not because reality changed, but because you finally have the eyes to see what was always there. You are not limited by what is, you are limited by what you believe is possible. And now that you know this, now that you see the mechanism, you can never be trapped by impossibility again. Every ceiling you encounter is just the current edge of your filter, and edges can always be pushed further. Boundaries can always be expanded. The impossible can always become inevitable once you reprogram your brain to see it. This is your invitation to possibility. This is your permission to challenge every limitation you've accepted. This is your reminder that your potential has no ceiling except the one you've constructed through belief. And that ceiling, it was never real. You're about to prove that to yourself, one impossible achievement at a time. Chapter 9. The Power of Aligned Action. When intention and movement become unstoppable. There's a moment that separates those who dream from those who create. A moment when everything you've been cultivating internally, your frequency, your identity, your beliefs, your expanded perception, either stays trapped in your inner world or breaks through into physical reality. That moment is the moment of action. Not just any action, not busy work or forced effort or desperate striving, but aligned action, the kind of movement that emerges from your transformed state and carries the full force of who you've become. Most people misunderstand the relationship between inner work and outer action. They think it's either or. Either you focus on mindset, energy, and vibration, or you focus on strategy, execution, and hustle. But this is a false dichotomy that keeps people stuck in two equally limiting patterns. Some people do endless inner work, visualizing and meditating and affirming, but never actually move. They wait for perfect clarity, perfect conditions, perfect certainty before they act, and that moment never comes. Others take massive action without any inner alignment, grinding and forcing and pushing, wondering why it feels so hard and yields so little. Both approaches miss the magic that happens when inner transformation and outer action unite. Aligned action is what happens when your internal state and your external movement are in complete harmony. When your frequency calls in an opportunity and you actually take it. When your expanded perception shows you a pathway and you actually walk it. When your transformed identity makes a choice and you actually honor it. This is the intersection where miracles happen, not because the universe magically delivers everything you want, but because you've become someone who can recognize, receive, and act on the opportunities that your new vibration has magnetized. Let me be clear about something. Manifestation without action is just fantasy. You can vibrate at the frequency of abundance all day long, but if you never do anything with the opportunities that show up, nothing changes. You can reprogram your beliefs about what's possible, but if you never test those new beliefs with actual movement, they remain theoretical. You can cultivate an unbreakable identity, but if you never act from that identity, you're just playing dress-up in your inner world. Real transformation requires the marriage of being and doing, of frequency and action, of vision and execution. But, and this is crucial, action without alignment is just exhausting. It's pushing against resistance instead of flowing with momentum. It's forcing instead of allowing. It's efforting from lack instead of creating from fullness. Most people have been taught that success requires struggle, that you have to work hard and sacrifice and grind until you break through. And yes, there are times when sustained effort is necessary. But when that effort is misaligned with your internal state, when you're acting from fear or desperation or should, instead of from inspiration and alignment, you create unnecessary friction. You work 10 times harder for a fraction of the results you would get if you learned to act from alignment. So what makes action aligned? How do you know the difference between inspired movement and forced effort? How do you recognize when to act and when to wait? The answer lies in your body. Your body always knows. When action is aligned, it feels expansive, even if it's challenging. There's a sense of rightness, of flow, of, yes, this is the next step. When action is misaligned, it feels contracting, even if logically it seems like the right move. There's resistance, heaviness, a sense of obligation rather than inspiration. Most people override these signals. They force themselves to do what they think they should do, ignoring what their inner guidance is telling them, and then they wonder why success feels so hard. I learned this lesson the painful way. There was a period in my life when I was taking massive action. I was working harder than I ever had, following all the strategies that were supposed to work, checking every box on the success formula. But I was miserable, and worse, I wasn't getting results that matched my effort. I was exhausted, frustrated, and starting to believe that maybe I just wasn't cut out for the level of success I wanted. I thought the problem was that I wasn't working hard enough, so I worked harder, and the harder I worked, the worse it got. Then someone asked me a question that stopped me in my tracks. Are you acting from inspiration or obligation? I didn't even have to think about the answer. Obligation. Every action I was taking felt like something I had to do, not something I was called to do. I was acting from fear, fear of failure, fear of falling behind, fear of not being enough. and that fear-based energy was infusing everything I did. No wonder it felt so hard, no wonder the results weren't coming. I was in constant friction with myself, trying to force outcomes from a state of contraction. The moment I recognized this, everything shifted. I stopped asking what should I do, and started asking, what am I genuinely inspired to do? What action feels aligned with the frequency I've been cultivating? What movement emerges naturally from my transformed state? And when I started acting from that place, from alignment instead of obligation, from inspiration instead of fear, everything became easier, not because the actions themselves were less challenging, but because I was no longer fighting myself. I was moving with my energy instead of against it, and the results that had been eluding me through forced effort started appearing through aligned action. This is what I want you to understand. Aligned action is not lazy. It's not passive. It's not waiting around for things to fall into your lap. It's deeply engaged, fully committed, and powerfully executed. But it flows from a different source. It flows from your truth, from your intuition, from your elevated state. And because it's sourced from alignment, it carries a different quality of energy. It has momentum behind it. It opens doors that forced action keeps closed. It attracts support that desperate action repels. So how do you cultivate the ability to act from alignment? How do you train yourself to recognize inspired action and distinguish it from fear-based striving? It starts with the foundation you've already built. All the inner work you've done, the identity transformation, the frequency cultivation, the belief reprogramming, this isn't separate from action. This is the preparation for action. This is what allows you to act from power instead of from desperation, from fullness instead of from lack, from choice instead of from compulsion. When you're in your magnetic state, when you're anchored in your unbreakable identity, when you're vibrating at the frequency of what you desire, you'll receive nudges, impulses, intuitive hits about what to do next. Most people ignore these nudges because they seem too small, too random, too unrelated to their big goals. They're waiting for a dramatic sign, a clear blueprint, a guaranteed path. But that's not how aligned action works. It works through subtle guidance that requires you to trust and move before you can see the whole picture. Maybe you get an impulse to reach out to someone you haven't talked to in years. Your logical mind says, "That's weird. Why would I do that?" But your intuition is responding to something your magnetic state has set in motion. Maybe that person has information you need, or knows someone you need to meet, or becomes a crucial piece of your next breakthrough. You won't know until you act. Maybe you feel drawn to take a class, read a book, attend an event that seems unrelated to your current goals. Your logical mind says, "I don't have time for that. I need to focus on what's directly relevant." But your intuition knows something your conscious mind doesn't. That random choice might be the exact thing that catalyzes your next level of growth. This is what aligned action requires. Trust. Trust in your inner guidance. Trust that the work you've done to elevate your frequency is actually working and attracting what you need, even if it doesn't look the way you expected. Trust that you don't need to have the whole path mapped out before you take the first step. Trust that when you act from alignment, from your truth, from your elevated state, the path reveals itself as you walk it. But trust doesn't mean being passive or waiting for perfect clarity before you move. Trust means taking action even when you can't see the outcome, especially when you can't see the outcome. Because aligned action is often about stepping into the unknown, into the uncomfortable, into the growing edge where transformation actually happens. The key is that you're taking that step from a place of alignment, not from fear, from expansion, not from contraction, from "this feels right, even though it's scary," instead of from "I'm forcing myself to do this because I think I should." There's a practice I developed for discerning aligned action, and it's changed everything for me. Before I take any significant action, I pause. I get quiet. I check in with my body. I ask, does this action expand me or contract me? Does it feel like a yes in my body, or does it feel like obligation? If it expands me, if there's a sense of rightness, even in the face of fear, I move forward. If it contracts me, if there's a heaviness or resistance that feels like should, rather than fear of growth, I wait. I get curious about why that action is on my radar. Is it coming from old programming, from comparison, from someone else's path that I'm trying to force on to mine? Or is it genuinely aligned, but my timing is off? This discernment practice has saved me from countless misaligned actions that would have wasted my energy and produced mediocre results. And it's guided me toward aligned actions that seemed irrational at the time, but turned out to be exactly what was needed. The key is learning to distinguish between the discomfort of growth and the discomfort of misalignment. Growth discomfort feels scary but expansive. Misalignment discomfort feels heavy and contracting. Your body knows the difference, even when your mind doesn't. Now here's where people often get tripped up. They confuse aligned action with comfortable action. They think if something feels hard or scary, it must not be aligned. But that's not true. Aligned action often requires you to do things that terrify you, to have conversations you'd rather avoid, to take risks you're not sure you're ready for, to show up in ways that feel vulnerable and exposed. The difference is that underneath the fear, there's a sense of rightness, a sense of, this is exactly what I need to do, even though it scares me. That's growth fear. That's expansion fear. That's the fear that accompanies aligned action into new territory. Misaligned action, on the other hand, might not even be that scary. It might just feel heavy, obligatory, like you're pushing a boulder uphill. It might be the safe choice that everyone expects you to make, but it contracts your energy instead of expanding it. Learning to feel this difference in your body is one of the most valuable skills you can develop, because when you can reliably distinguish between aligned and misaligned action, you stop wasting energy on paths that lead nowhere and start investing it in movements that create momentum. Aligned action also requires you to release attachment to outcomes. This might sound counterintuitive. Aren't you taking action to create specific results? Yes and no. You're taking action to express your truth, to honor your intuition, to move energy from the internal realm to the external realm. The specific outcome is important, but it's not the only measure of success. Sometimes aligned action produces results that are even better than what you imagined. Sometimes it produces results that look like failure, but are actually redirecting you toward something more aligned. And sometimes the value of the action is in who you become by taking it, regardless of the immediate outcome. When you release attachment to outcome, you free yourself to act boldly without the paralysis of needing to know it will work. You can experiment. You can try things. You can follow inspiration without needing a guarantee. And paradoxically, this is when the best results come. Not when you're desperately attached to making something happen, but when you're committed to aligned action and trusting that the right results will emerge. This is the dance between intention and surrender, between focused direction and open allowance, between doing your part and trusting the universe to do its part. Let's talk about momentum, because this is where aligned action becomes truly powerful. When you take one aligned action, it creates energy. That energy attracts opportunities, insights, or support that make the next action clearer and easier. That second action creates more energy, which attracts more opportunities, and suddenly you're in a flow state where things are happening faster and more effortlessly than you could have orchestrated through planning alone. This is momentum, and it only comes from aligned action. Forced action doesn't create momentum, it creates exhaustion. But when you're acting from alignment, each step generates energy for the next step, and you find yourself moving further and faster with less effort. I've experienced this momentum so many times now that I trust it completely. I'll take one aligned action, maybe reaching out to someone, maybe starting a project that feels right, maybe making a decision that scares me but expands me. And within days, sometimes within hours, something shifts. An unexpected connection is made. A resource appears. A door opens. And I'm not sitting around visualizing and hoping. I'm actively moving, creating, engaging. But I'm doing it from alignment, which means I'm working with the universe instead of trying to force it to comply with my limited plans. This is what makes you unstoppable. Not that nothing can stop you from taking action, but that your action itself becomes a creative force that generates its own momentum, attracts its own support, and opens its own pathways. You're not just doing things. You're participating in a creative flow that's larger than you, but working through you. You're not just executing a plan. You're allowing yourself to be guided by inspiration and then honoring that guidance with committed movement. You're not just working hard. You're working smart, working aligned, working from the elevated state you've cultivated. Here's a powerful practice for harnessing aligned action. At the start of each day, instead of looking at your to-do list and forcing yourself through tasks, get quiet. Connect to your elevated state. Feel into your magnetic frequency, and then ask, what is the most aligned action I can take today? What single move would most powerfully express my truth and move me toward my vision? You might get an answer you weren't expecting. It might not even be on your to-do list. But if it feels expansive, if it feels right, if it comes from inspiration rather than obligation, do that first. Give your best energy to your most aligned action. Everything else becomes secondary or handles itself or reveals itself as unnecessary. When you orient your days around aligned action rather than obligatory tasks, everything changes. You stop feeling like you're constantly behind, constantly not doing enough, constantly falling short, because you're no longer measuring yourself against an arbitrary standard of busyness. You're measuring yourself against alignment. And when you're taking aligned action consistently, even if it's less action than you used to take, the results surpass anything forced effort ever created. As you close your eyes tonight, review your recent actions. Which ones felt aligned? Which ones felt forced? Notice the difference in your body, in your energy, in the outcomes. And then make a commitment. Tomorrow, I will prioritize aligned action over obligatory action. I will trust my intuition about what needs to happen next. I will honor the nudges, even if they don't make logical sense. I will move from inspiration rather than fear. I will act from my elevated state rather than from lack or desperation. Feel what it would be like to live this way consistently, to wake up each day and ask what is mine to do today, instead of forcing yourself through a predetermined list. To trust that when you act from alignment, the right results emerge. To know that you don't have to have it all figured out before you move. You just have to take the next aligned step and trust that the path will reveal itself. Feel the relief in that. Feel the power in that. Feel the freedom in that. This is what it means to be unstoppable. Not that you never pause, never rest, never reassess, but that when you move with the full force of your aligned state behind you. Your action carries the momentum of your frequency. Your movement expresses your truth. Your execution flows from your elevation. And when intention and movement unite in this way, when your inner transformation and your outer action are in perfect harmony, nothing can stop what you're creating. Not because you're forcing it, but because you've aligned with something much more powerful than force. You've aligned with the creative flow of the universe itself, and you're allowing that flow to move through you and as you. This is your power. This is your path. This is how dreams become reality. Not through wishful thinking or desperate striving, but through the sacred marriage of elevated being and aligned doing. You are ready for this. You have always been ready. Now you just need to move. Not frantically, not forcefully, but with the quiet confidence of someone who knows that when they act from alignment, the universe conspires to support them. And it does. Every single time. Welcome to the power of aligned action. Welcome to the place where your inner transformation becomes outer manifestation. Welcome to the unstoppable force you become when you learn to move from truth, from elevation, from the deepest alignment with who you truly are. Chapter 10. The unbreakable version of you. Integrating everything and becoming unstoppable, you've arrived. Not at a destination, because this journey has no final stop, but at a threshold, a point of no return, a moment when everything you've learned, every practice you've integrated, every truth you've embodied converges into something singular and powerful, a new version of you. Not the you that started this journey, not the you that was shaped by old programming, limited beliefs, and unconscious patterns, but the you that has been forged through awareness, refined through practice, and awakened through choice. This is your initiation, not in the mystical sense of some external authority granting you permission to be powerful, but in the most real sense, you are crossing from who you were into who you are becoming. And once you cross this threshold, once you fully embody what you now know, there is no going back. You can never again pretend you don't know that your thoughts create your reality. You can never again claim you're powerless when you know you're the creator of your experience. You can never again play small when you've tasted what it feels like to be expansive. The old version of you, the one who accepted limitation, who absorbed everyone's energy, who believed in impossibility, that version is dissolving, and in its place stands someone unbreakable. Let me be clear about what unbreakable means. It doesn't mean nothing touches you. It doesn't mean you never feel pain, never face challenges, never doubt yourself. Being unbreakable doesn't mean you're made of stone, impervious to the human experience. It means you've developed a core that remains stable, regardless of what's happening around you or within you. It means you can feel everything: the fear, the sadness, the anger, the uncertainty, and still know who you are. It means you can be bent by life's storms, but never broken. You can be transformed by challenges, but never destroyed by them. This is true strength. This is what you've been building. Think about everything you've integrated throughout this journey. You've awakened to the force that lives within you, recognizing that power isn't something you need to acquire, but something you need to remember. You've reprogrammed your identity at the quantum level, understanding that who you are is not fixed, but a frequency you choose. You've built an emotional shield that protects your energy without closing your heart, allowing you to remain open and powerful simultaneously. You've identified and eliminated the invisible beliefs that were sabotaging you, clearing the path for new possibilities. You've learned the alchemy of transforming difficult emotions into fuel for growth. You've cultivated a magnetic state that attracts aligned opportunities. You've established a daily ritual that makes resilience your baseline. You've expanded your perception to see possibilities where you once saw only limitations. And you've discovered how to take aligned action that creates momentum and manifests results. All of this, every concept, every practice, every insight, has been building toward this moment. The moment when you stop being someone who is working on becoming powerful and start being someone who is powerful. The moment when these practices stop being things you do and become who you are. The moment when your unbreakable state is no longer an aspiration, but your lived reality. But here's what most people don't understand about transformation. It's not a smooth, linear journey. You don't just ascend steadily from one level to the next until you reach some enlightened state where everything is perfect. Real transformation happens in cycles. You expand, then you contract. You break through, then you face a new challenge that tests everything you've learned. You integrate, then you discover a deeper layer that needs healing. This isn't failure. This is the spiral of growth. And the unbreakable version of you isn't the one who never contracts, never struggles, never faces setbacks. It's the one who knows how to return to center, who trusts the process, who understands that every challenge is an invitation to embody your power more fully. I need you to hear this because there will be moments after you finish this book when you forget everything you've learned. Moments when you slip back into old patterns, old fears, old limitations. Moments when you question whether any of this actually works, or if you were just caught up in temporary inspiration. These moments don't mean you've failed. They mean you're human, and the unbreakable version of you doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to know how to return, to remember, to recommit. Every time you catch yourself in an old pattern and consciously choose to return to your truth, you're not starting over. You're strengthening your unbreakable core. You're proving to yourself that no matter how far you drift, you know the way home. This is the initiation, choosing yourself over and over again, choosing your truth when the world is telling you lies, choosing your power when circumstances are inviting you to be powerless, choosing your frequency when everyone around you is operating from fear, choosing aligned action when comfort is calling you to stay small. Every choice you make from your elevated state is a vote for the unbreakable version of you. And when you accumulate enough votes, when you choose yourself consistently enough, that version stops being something you're trying to become. It becomes who you are. Let me tell you what happened when I finally crossed this threshold myself. There was a moment, not dramatic, not accompanied by lightning bolts or cosmic revelations, when I realized I had fundamentally changed. I was facing a situation that would have destroyed the old version of me. The kind of challenge that used to send me spiraling into anxiety, self-doubt, and victimhood. But this time, something was different. I felt the fear. I acknowledged the difficulty. But underneath it all, there was this unshakable knowing. I've got this. Not because I knew how it would turn out, not because I had all the answers, but because I knew who I was. I knew my truth. I knew my power. And I knew that whatever happened, I would meet it from my center, rather than being swept away by it. That was the moment I knew the transformation was real. Not because life became easy, but because I had become someone who could handle whatever life brought. Not because I had arrived at some final destination, but because I had become someone who trusted the journey. Not because I was perfect, but because I was unbreakable. And if I can reach that point, someone who started with all the same doubts, fears, and limitations you probably started with, then you can too. Because this isn't about being special or chosen or different. This is about being willing to do the work, to face yourself, to change the programming, and to embody the truth of who you really are. Now, as you stand at this threshold, I want to walk you through an integration practice that will anchor everything you've learned into your being. This isn't just another technique. This is your initiation ceremony, your conscious claiming of the unbreakable version of yourself. You can do this now, or you can do this tonight before sleep, when your subconscious is most receptive. But do it with full presence, full intention, full commitment, because this is the moment you stop being a student of these principles and become the embodiment of them. Close your eyes and take a deep breath. Feel yourself fully present in your body, fully here in this moment. And now, bring to mind the version of yourself that existed before this journey began. See that version clearly. Feel the limitations they carried, the beliefs they held, the patterns they repeated. Don't judge them. Thank them. They did the best they could with the awareness they had. They survived everything that brought you to this moment. Honor them, and then consciously release them. See that old version dissolving, transforming, completing its purpose. You don't need to be that person anymore. You never needed to be that person. You just didn't know there was another option. Now you do. And as that old version dissolves, feel something new emerging from within. Not something external that you're putting on like a costume, but something that was always there, buried beneath the programming, waiting for you to remember. This is the unbreakable version of you. Feel their presence, feel their power, feel their unshakable core. This isn't a fantasy. This is you at your most authentic. This is who you are when you strip away everything that was never really yours. Now, feel this unbreakable version fully inhabiting your body. Feel how they stand, how they breathe, how they hold themselves. Feel their energy, grounded, powerful, magnetic, clear. Feel their emotional state, not devoid of feeling, but capable of feeling everything without being consumed by anything. Feel their certainty, not the arrogant certainty that refuses to grow, but the deep certainty that knows they can handle whatever comes. Let this version of you become more real than any version you've been before. Let your body memorize this state. Let your nervous system recognize this as your new baseline. And now, speak these words, out loud if you can, or silently if you must. But speak them with every ounce of conviction in your being. I am unbreakable, not because nothing touches me, but because my core remains stable regardless of what touches me. I am powerful, not because I control everything, but because I am sovereign over my own state. I am magnetic, not because I chase what I want, but because I embody the frequency that attracts it. I am free, not because I have no challenges, but because I choose my response to every challenge. I am the creator of my reality, not through manipulation or force, but through the conscious direction of my energy, my thoughts, my beliefs, and my actions. I am exactly who I need to be, exactly when I need to be it, and I am ready. Feel those words landing in your cells. Feel them reprogramming your subconscious. Feel them establishing new neural pathways. Feel them calling forth the version of you that has always existed, but has been waiting for your permission to emerge fully. This is your declaration. This is your claiming. This is your initiation. Now bring to mind your life, the circumstances, the relationships, the challenges, the opportunities, but see them all through the eyes of your unbreakable self. From this elevated state, how do those circumstances look different? What possibilities appear that were invisible before? What actions become obvious that were hidden before? What fears lose their power when met from this center? Notice how your entire reality shifts, not because anything external changed, but because you changed. Because the observer affects the observed. Because the you that's looking at your life determines what you see. And finally, make a commitment. Not to be perfect, not to never struggle, not to maintain this elevated state every single moment of every single day. That's not realistic and it's not necessary. But commit to this. I will remember who I am. When I forget, I will return. When I fall, I will rise. When I contract, I will expand again. When I doubt, I will reconnect to my truth. I will not abandon myself, no matter what. I will not betray my power, no matter what. I will not settle for less than what I know is possible, no matter what. This is my commitment. This is my initiation. This is my becoming. Open your eyes. Look around. You're in the same room, the same circumstances, the same life. But you're not the same. Something fundamental has shifted. You've crossed the threshold. You've claimed the unbreakable version of yourself. And from this moment forward, every choice you make either strengthens that version or weakens it. Every thought either aligns with your truth or contradicts it. Every action either expresses your power or gives it away. You now have conscious awareness of this dynamic, which means you have conscious choice in every moment. This is what it means to be unbreakable. You're aware. You're awake. You're no longer operating on autopilot, letting old programming run your life. You're consciously choosing who you're being, moment by moment, breath by breath, decision by decision. And yes, you'll still make choices from the old programming sometimes. You'll still have moments of unconsciousness. But the difference is, you'll recognize it. You'll catch yourself. You'll have the awareness to say, that's not who I am anymore, and consciously return to your truth. As you move forward from here, remember this. The unbreakable version of you doesn't need external validation, doesn't need anyone to believe in you or understand you or approve of you, doesn't need perfect circumstances or ideal timing or guaranteed outcomes. The unbreakable version of you has everything they need within them. They trust themselves. They trust the process. They trust that when they show up as their authentic, powerful self, reality reorganizes itself to match. They know that they're not at the mercy of the world. The world is responding to who they're being. You will be tested. Life will bring situations specifically designed to see if this transformation is real or if it was just a temporary high. People will show up who trigger your old patterns. Circumstances will arise that challenge your new beliefs. Opportunities will appear that require you to step beyond your comfort zone. These aren't obstacles to your power. These are confirmations of it. These are invitations to prove to yourself that you've actually changed. And every time you meet these tests from your unbreakable core, every time you choose your truth over your conditioning, you make the transformation more permanent. You strengthen the foundation. You become more of who you truly are. I also want you to know this. You're not alone. Everywhere around you, there are others who are on this same path. Others who are awakening to their power, reclaiming their truth, becoming unbreakable. You might not always recognize them. They don't wear signs announcing their transformation, but they're there. And as you embody this unbreakable version of yourself, You become a beacon for them. Your frequency calls to their frequency. Your power activates their power. Your courage gives them permission to be courageous. You don't have to announce it or teach it or proselytize it. You just have to be it. And your being will impact everyone who's ready to awaken. This is your legacy, not what you achieve or acquire or accomplish, though those things may come. Your real legacy is who you become, and how that influences the collective consciousness. Every person who steps into their power makes it easier for the next person to do the same. Every person who refuses to play small expands what's possible for everyone. Every person who becomes unbreakable weakens the grip of limitation on humanity. You're not just transforming yourself. You're contributing to the transformation of the world, not through force or evangelism, but through embodiment, through being so fully yourself that others remember they can be fully themselves too. So as you close this book, as you prepare to take everything you've learned into your life, know this: you have been initiated. You have crossed the threshold. You are no longer who you were when you started this journey. Something fundamental has shifted within you, and that shift is permanent. You can forget it. You can ignore it. You can try to go back to sleep. But once you've awakened to your truth, once you've tasted what it feels like to be unbreakable, you can never fully forget. The knowing lives in you now, and it will keep calling you back to yourself every time you drift away. This is not the end of your journey. This is the beginning. The real work starts now. The real test is living this truth every day, not just reading about it. The real transformation is choosing this version of yourself consistently, not just feeling inspired for a moment, but you're ready. You've always been ready. You just needed to remember, and now you have. As you drift into sleep tonight, let everything you've learned integrate into your deepest consciousness. Let your subconscious absorb the truth of who you are. Let your body relax into the knowing that you are held, you are supported, you are guided. Let your mind release any remaining doubt about your capacity to be everything you came here to be. You are unbreakable. You are powerful. You are magnetic. You are free. You are sovereign. You are the creator of your reality. And nothing, absolutely nothing, can change that truth unless you allow it. Tomorrow you wake up as the unbreakable version of yourself, not trying to be them, not pretending to be them, being them, because that's who you are now. That's who you've chosen to become. That's who is always waiting inside you for permission to emerge. And permission has been granted by you, for you, the force that has carried you through every moment of your life until now, every challenge, every heartbreak, every dark night, every moment you thought would destroy you but didn't. That force is still there, stronger now, wiser now, fully awakened now. And it's not separate from you. It is you. You are the force. You always have been. You just forgot for a while. But now you remember, and that changes everything. Welcome home. Welcome to your power. Welcome to the unbreakable, unstoppable, magnificent truth of who you really are. This is not the end. This is your beginning, and nothing can stop you now. Nothing. Because the only thing that was ever stopping you was the belief that you could be stopped. And that belief, you just shattered it forever. You are unbreakable, and you always have been. Now you just know it. Go create the impossible. Go live the extraordinary. Go be the force that you are. The world is waiting for the fully awakened version of you, and that version, they're ready now. They've always been ready, and they will never be stopped again. This is your truth. This is your power. This is your life. Go live it, unbreakably.